The rejection email arrived during dinner. I almost missed it, busy cutting Serenity's chicken into perfect bite-sized pieces while she complained about her latest headache. One quick glance at my phone screen was all it took to make my hands shake. We regret to inform you, my name is Jasmine, and I've spent 18 years being the responsible one, the capable one, the one who doesn't need help. That's what happens when your sister gets diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome at age 7. You learn to fade into the background. Everything okay, honey? Mom asked, not really looking up from adjusting Serenity's water glass. Stanford rejected me, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the hurricane in my chest. Dad grunted, fork scraping against his plate. Well, that's probably for the best. You wouldn't want to be that far from home anyway. Serenity needs you here. Of course. It always comes back to Serenity. I can help you with community college applications. Serenity perked up, suddenly energetic despite her supposed migraine. We could be study buddies. Wouldn't that be amazing? I forced a smile, the kind I perfected over years of family photos where I stood slightly out of frame. Yeah, amazing. You've always been so practical, Jasmine, Mom added, reaching across to pat Serenity's hand. Your sister needs someone level-headed nearby. Besides, those elite universities are more stress than they're worth. The conversation shifted back to Serenity's upcoming doctor's appointment, and I excused myself to clear the dishes. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter until my knuckles turned white. Something wasn't right. I'd maintained a 4.2 GPA while basically running our household. Perfect SAT scores. Glowing recommendations. Stanford had been my dream since freshman year, and I'd done everything to make it happen. Need help with those dishes? Lana's text lit up my phone screen, our code for rescue me. Coming over to study, I called out, already grabbing my keys. Don't be too late, Mom shouted back. Serenity needs a ride to her tutor tomorrow morning. Lana was waiting on her front porch. One look at my face telling her everything she needed to know. Spill. Stanford rejected me, I said, dropping onto her porch swing. But that's not even the weird part. The email, it mentioned my application was incomplete. Incomplete? Lana frowned. You're the most organized person I know. You triple-checked everything. Exactly. I pulled out my phone, logging into Stanford's application portal. And look at this. Decision mailed 3 weeks ago. But I never got any mail from them. Lana's eyes narrowed. Your parents check the mail first, right? They always have. Dad says it's more efficient since he works from home. The words felt different now. Heavier. They've been weird lately, too. Extra insistent about me staying local for college. Like how? Last week, Dad accidentally threw out my housing forms for UCLA. Mom keeps talking about how Serenity can't handle change. And yesterday, I swallowed hard. I overheard them talking about converting my bedroom into a home office once I settle into community college. Before you even applied? Lana sat up straighter. Jazz, something's seriously wrong here. My phone buzzed. Serenity asking when I'd be home to help with her English essay. Always needing, always taking. I have to know, I said, standing up. Dad keeps all the important mail in his office, in that locked filing cabinet. The one you've known the combination to since you were 12, because you organized their tax documents? Lana's smile turned sharp. Funny how they forget how capable you are when it's convenient. I checked the time. Dad would be driving Serenity to her evening therapy session. Mom would be taking her weekly bath, complete with lavender candles and noise-canceling headphones. Cover for me if they call, I asked Lana. Always. She squeezed my hand. But Jazz, whatever you find in there, be ready for it to hurt. The drive home felt longer than usual, my mind racing through years of small moments, the forgotten dance recitals, the college brochures that disappeared from my room, the way they always said I was so independent, like it was both a praise and a punishment. I parked in the empty driveway, my house key silent in the lock. The home office door creaked slightly as I pushed it open, moonlight streaming through the window onto Dad's pristine desk. The filing cabinet stood in the corner, organized alphabetically because I'd labeled everything myself last summer. My hands didn't shake as I input the combination. Serenity's birthday, of course. W for Welch, then J for Jasmine, then there it was. A thick envelope from Stanford University, postmarked 3 weeks ago, already opened. My heart stopped when I saw what was paperclipped to it. A withdrawal letter, dated 2 weeks ago, bearing my signature. A signature I had never made. My hands trembled as I pulled out the Stanford letter. Dear Ms. Welch, congratulations. We are pleased to offer you admission. The words blurred as tears threatened to spill. I'd actually gotten in, and they'd hidden it from me. The withdrawal letter felt wrong in my hands, like holding a venomous snake. The signature was close. They'd probably used one of my school permission slips as reference, but the loops were too perfect, too deliberate. Mom's handwriting, trying to be mine. Footsteps creaked downstairs. I froze. Jasmine, Mom's voice called up. Are you home? I quickly photographed both letters with my phone, returned them exactly as I'd found them, and closed the cabinet. In the bathroom, I shouted back, my voice miraculously steady. In my bedroom mirror, I stared at my reflection, forcing my breathing to slow. The girl looking back at me wasn't the same one who'd left for Lana's house an hour ago. That girl still had trust left to lose. My phone buzzed. A text from Serenity. Where are my English notes? You promised to help me study. I started typing check your desk when another email notification popped up. From Calden University. I'd applied there months ago, almost as an afterthought. It was further away than Stanford, less prestigious but known for its research programs. I'd never mentioned it to my parents. Dear Jasmine, we are pleased to offer you admission to Calden University's class of 2027 with a full academic scholarship. A laugh bubbled up in my throat, half hysteria and half relief. They couldn't intercept what they didn't know existed. Jasmine, Mom called again. Serenity needs you. I took one last look in the mirror. Coming, I called back, but I wasn't the same daughter anymore. They'd made sure of that. Downstairs, Serenity sprawled across the couch, textbooks untouched beside her. Finally! My head is killing me. Can you just write the outline for me? You're so much better at English anyway. Actually, I said, sitting down, maybe it's time you learn to do this yourself. Mom's head snapped up from her phone. Jasmine, don't be difficult. Your sister isn't feeling well. Is she ever? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Serenity's lower lip trembled. Right on cue. I'm sorry, I backtracked smoothly. Long day. Let me see what you've got so far. Mom relaxed, returning to her phone. Serenity launched into a detailed description of her symptoms, miraculously finding enough energy to complain for 10 straight minutes. I nodded along, but my mind was already racing ahead. The Calden acceptance needed to stay secret. I'd need a new phone, a separate bank account, a plan. Oh, by the way, Mom said casually, Dad and I were thinking, since you'll be staying local, maybe you could take over driving Serenity to her appointments. The medical center is right near the community college. My pencil paused mid-sentence. I haven't applied to any community colleges yet. Don't worry about that, sweetie, Mom smiled. Dad's already picked up some applications. We'll help you fill them out this weekend. The same weekend they'd forged my signature to withdraw from Stanford. That's thoughtful of you, I managed. We just want what's best for everyone, Mom said, reaching over to stroke Serenity's hair. This way, you'll still have time for your own classes while helping your sister. It's perfect. Perfect. Like the forged signature. Like their plans for my future. I'm going to bed, I announced. Early morning tomorrow. But my essay, Serenity protested. You can do it, I said, gathering my things. You're smarter than you think. In my room, I pulled out my phone and opened my email. The called-in acceptance glowed on the screen like a lighthouse in a storm. Full scholarship, housing included, 3 states away. A new message popped up from Lana. Well, I started typing. They forged my signature, rejected Stanford for me. But I have a backup plan they don't know about. Can you come over tomorrow night? I need your help. Her response was immediate. Those bastards, I'm in. Whatever you need. I lay back on my bed, listening to the familiar sounds of my mother cooing over Serenity's latest crisis downstairs. For 16 years, they trained me to be the reliable one, the capable one, the one who needed nothing and gave everything. They never considered that those same qualities might be their undoing. My phone lit up with one final message from Calden University. Please confirm your acceptance by clicking here. I smiled in the darkness and clicked accept. Game on. You're being weird, Serenity announced 3 days later, sprawled across my bed while I folded laundry. Like, extra quiet weird. Just tired, I said, carefully arranging my socks into pairs. Each match set went into a box labeled donation instead of my drawer. Small steps. Mom says you've been avoiding family dinner. I've been studying. Not a lie. I'd been studying bus schedules, housing forms, and how to open a secret bank account. Serenity rolled onto her stomach, watching me with that calculating look she'd perfected over years of getting her way. Remember when we were little, and you used to let me sleep in your bed during thunderstorms? Remember when you told everyone at school I didn't have the personality for elite universities? I kept my voice light, casual. She flinched. That was months ago. I was just repeating what Mom said. My hand stilled on a sweater. What exactly did Mom say? Nothing important. Serenity suddenly found her phone fascinating. Just, that you're better suited for practical things, taking care of people, like me. The sweater crumpled in my grip. Right. Anyway, she continued brightly, want to drive me to my campus tour tomorrow? Mom said you'd love to. Of course she did. Sure. Serenity beamed. You're the best. Maybe afterward we can look at those community college applications Dad got you. I forced a smile. Maybe. Later that night, Lana sat cross-legged on my floor, helping me sort through years of belongings. Keep, donate, trash, she whispered, pointing to different piles. Most of it can go, I said. Calden has furnished dorms. A smart girl. She held up a framed family photo. Trash? Keep evidence. Lana nodded approvingly. How's the secret bank account? Set up last week. I've been depositing my tutoring money slowly. Small amounts won't trigger any notifications on Dad's banking app. And the new phone? I pulled out a basic prepaid model from under my mattress. Activated yesterday. I'll switch everything over the night before. You've thought of everything. Lana paused, holding up my debate team trophy. What about... A knock at my door sent us scrambling. I kicked the boxes under my bed as Mom walked in. Girls, I brought cookies. She set down a plate, eyeing the scattered items. Spring cleaning? Just organizing, I said. You know me. Practical. Mom smiled that soft, patronizing smile I'd grown to hate. That's my responsible girl. Oh, and don't forget, Serenity's campus tour tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. I remember. After she left, Alana grabbed my arm. 9 a.m.? But that's when we were going to... It's fine, I cut her off. The bank will still be there next week. I can't change my routine too much. The next morning, I drove Serenity to the local community college, listening to her chatter about dorm colors and meal plans. The irony wasn't lost on me. And then maybe you could help me with my assignments, she was saying, since you'll be right here too. Mom says, what if I wasn't? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Serenity's face did something complicated. Wasn't what? Here, right here. What if I went somewhere else? Don't be silly, she laughed, but it sounded forced. You weren't staying here forever, Jazz. Mom and Dad couldn't let that happen. The car swerved slightly as her words hit me. What do you mean, couldn't let that happen? Nothing. I just meant, you know, they need you here. I need you here. She twisted her hands in her lap. Can we stop for coffee? My head hurts. I pulled into the nearest Starbucks, mind racing. Serenity knew. She'd known about Stanford, about their plans, about all of it. The usual, I asked, already knowing her elaborate order by heart. You're the best, she smiled, all traces of discomfort gone. This is why you're so perfect for taking care of people, Jazz. You always know exactly what everyone needs. I ordered her drink and a black coffee for myself, watching her photograph the cup for her Instagram. My phone buzzed, the other one hidden in my jacket pocket. A message from Calden University. Housing assignment confirmed. Ready for the tour? I asked, holding the door for my sister. Ready. She bounced ahead, already talking about which club she might join. I followed more slowly, thinking about that slip. Couldn't let that happen. They'd planned this. All of them. My entire family had conspired to clip my wings before I could fly. But they'd forgotten something crucial. They'd raised me to be independent, capable, and resourceful. They'd raised me to survive without them. And in exactly 23 days, they'd learn exactly what that meant. Graduation day arrived with the subtlety of a circus. Mom spent the morning fussing over Serenity's outfit. You need to look perfect in the family photos, sweetie, while I did my own hair in the bathroom mirror. Don't forget to smile, Mom called through the door. Your father's getting a community board position next week, and appearances matter. Of course they did. That's why she'd picked out my dress. Sensible navy blue, nothing that would draw attention. Perfect for the daughter they wanted everyone to see. My phone buzzed. The real one, hidden in my purse. A message from Calden. Final housing paperwork received. Welcome home. 13 days to go. At the ceremony, I sat between a girl named Hannah and some kid who'd slept through most of senior year. Principal Roberts droned on about futures and possibilities, and I caught my parents beaming at Serenity, already planning her own graduation next year. Jasmine, Principal Roberts called. I walked across the stage, accepted my diploma, and heard the polite applause. From somewhere in the crowd, Lana whooped loudly. At least someone was celebrating. That's my practical girl, Dad said afterward, clapping my shoulder. Now, about that board position, I mentioned how you'll be helping manage Serenity's college transition while taking local classes. They were very impressed with our family values. Were they? I smiled, thinking about the empty bedroom they'd find in less than 2 weeks. Speaking of which, Mom cut in, we should discuss your fall schedule. I've already mapped out Serenity's appointments. Actually, I interrupted, I need to meet Lana. We're celebrating. But the family photos, already got them. I held up my phone, showing the pictures we'd taken before the ceremony. I'm 18 now, Mom. I can manage my own graduation day. I walked away before she could protest, finding Lana by her beat-up Volkswagen. She hugged me tight, then pulled back with a wicked grin. Ready for your graduation present? She handed me an envelope. Inside was a bus ticket. For exactly 13 days from now, leaving at 6 a.m. One way to freedom, she whispered. I'll drive you to the station. My eyes burned. Lana, don't you dare cry. You'll mess up your makeup, and then they'll know something's up. She squeezed my hand. Come on, let's get ice cream, one last time. At our favorite shop, sitting with our feet dangling off the tailgate of Lana's car, I watched families pass by. Happy graduates taking photos, parents hugging their kids, genuine pride shining on their faces. Your dad called my mom, Lana said suddenly, asked if she knew of any apartment rentals near the community college. I nearly choked on my ice cream. He what? They're really going all in on this plan of theirs. She licked her spoon thoughtfully. Oh, and get this. They're already advertising your room for rent. My cousin saw the listing. The ice cream turned to ash in my mouth. They're renting out my room? I haven't even applied to their precious community college yet. Because they think they've got you trapped. Lana's voice hardened. Which is exactly why you need to get out. My phone, the family one, buzzed. Serenity, where are you? Mom's freaking out. We're supposed to have graduation dinner. Speaking of trapped, I muttered, showing Lana the text. 13 more days. She reminded me. You can do anything for 13 days. Back home, Mom had outdone herself. The dining room sparkled with decorations, all centered around Serenity's favorite foods. My diploma sat propped against a vase, almost an afterthought. There you are, Mom exclaimed. We were about to start without you. Sit, sit. Your father has news. Dad stood raising his glass. As you know, I've been nominated for the community board, and today they made it official. They were particularly impressed by our family stability, how we support each other, how we stay together. To family, Mom beamed, lifting her glass. To family, everyone echoed. I pressed my lips to the glass without drinking. And speaking of support, Dad continued, we've had an interesting opportunity come up. The Andersons are looking for a room to rent for their son while he attends community college. Since Jasmine will be sharing with Serenity anyway, the glass nearly slipped from my hand. Sharing? Well, of course, honey. Mom's smile didn't reach her eyes. Serenity needs you close by. We've already started moving your things. They'd been in my room. My heart stopped. I already picked which side of the room I want, Serenity chirped. The left side has better lighting for my morning yoga. I forced myself to breathe. The important things were at Lana's. The bus ticket was safe. 13 days. That's thoughtful of you, I managed. We're so proud of how mature you're being, Mom said. This is exactly why we know you'll do wonderfully at community college. I smiled and nodded, already counting the hours until they'd learn just how mature I could be. 8 days until freedom, and Serenity was having a meltdown. You promised to help with my summer reading, she wailed, sprawled across our bedroom floor. I can't understand Shakespeare alone. You managed to understand those college application instructions just fine, I said, continuing to fold the clothes I'd forgotten to put away. Each piece would go to Lana's tonight, joining the growing pile of my escape supplies. That's different. This is hard. She threw her copy of Macbeth across the room. You're being mean lately. Mom says you're probably just stressed about community college. I picked up the book. Maybe you should try actually reading it instead of waiting for me to explain everything. But I won't always be here to help, Serenity. She sat up, eyes narrowing. Yes, you will. That's the whole point. The air between us crackled with something dangerous. Before I could respond, Mom appeared in the doorway. Girls! I heard raised voices. Her smile was tight. Jasmine, why don't you help your sister? You've always been so good at explaining things. Actually, I said, I have plans with Lana. Again? Mom's smile slipped. You've been out almost every night this week. Serenity needs... I'm 18, I cut in. I'm allowed to see my friends. Of course you are, sweetie. Mom's voice dripped honey. But family should come first. Right, Serenity? Serenity nodded, lower lip trembling right on cue. I'll help tomorrow, I lied, grabbing my bag. The one with 3 more boxes of my life packed inside, ready for transport to Lana's garage. You're different, Serenity called after me. Ever since graduation, you're different. I paused at the door. Maybe I'm just finally being myself. At Lana's house, we added the new boxes to the growing pile. 1 more load tomorrow, she said, and you'll be done. Just in time. They're getting suspicious. I sat on a box labeled winter clothes. Mom's watching me like a hawk, and Serenity keeps making these comments. 7 more days, Lana reminded me. Stay smart. Stay quiet. My phone buzzed, the family one. Dad. Coming home soon? Need to discuss community college orientation. Picked up your registration forms today. They're really pushing this college thing. I showed Lana the text. Dad's been bringing home brochures. Mom's planning my schedule. Because their perfect little plan is almost complete. Lana's voice hardened. The dutiful daughter, staying home forever as Serenity's personal assistant. Another buzz. Mom this time. Serenity's having anxiety about her reading. Please come home. Go, Lana said. Keep playing their game. But first, she handed me an envelope. Your new bank card came. I had it sent here, just in case. Back home, I found Serenity in our room, still pouting over Macbeth. Finally, she huffed. I've been waiting forever. Mom says you need to help me understand Act 1 tonight. I sat on my stripped-down bed, now pushed against the wall to make room for Serenity's expanding territory. What don't you understand? Everything. Like, why does Lady Macbeth have to be so mean? Why can't she just support her husband without all the manipulation? I almost laughed at the irony. Sometimes people manipulate others because they think they know what's best for them, but it ruins everything. Serenity flopped back dramatically. Oh, did you see? Mom moved your college acceptance letters box to the garage. She said we needed the shelf space. My heart stopped. What box? The one with all your rejection letters. Though I only saw Stanford in there. She trailed off, suddenly very interested in her phone. I waited until midnight before sneaking to the garage. The box was there, tucked behind Dad's golf clubs. Inside, under the Stanford rejection, lay a stack of unopened envelopes from other universities. More acceptances they'd hidden, more futures they'd stolen. My hands shook as I photographed everything, then carefully returned the box. Evidence. All of it. Back in my room, Serenity's gentle snores filled the air as I checked my secret phone. A message from Calden University. Student orientation materials dispatched. Track your package here. I'd had them sent to Lana's address, of course. Another buzz. Dad in the family group chat. Great news. The Andersons are signing the rental agreement tomorrow. Jasmine, we'll need to finish moving your things to Serenity's room this weekend. Mom replied instantly, perfect timing, just in time for community college orientation next week. I turned off the phone and lay in my stripped-down bed, listening to Serenity mumble in her sleep. 7 more days until they learned what real manipulation looked like. 7 days until they realized they'd taught me too well. The night before everything changed, Mom decided to have a family dinner. To celebrate new beginnings, she said, setting out the good china. I watched her arrange the silverware, remembering all the time she taught me the proper way to set a table. A lady always knows how to make others comfortable, she'd say, while Serenity played video games upstairs. Need help? I asked, knowing the answer. No, sweetie, you've done enough. She smiled that familiar, dismissive smile. Though you could check on Serenity, she's been awfully quiet. Of course. I climbed the stairs one last time, each step feeling heavier than the last. My room, what was left of it, looked like a war zone. Serenity's things had exploded across both sides, leaving only my bare mattress and empty dresser as evidence I'd ever lived there. Mom wants to know if you're okay, I said from the doorway. Serenity lay sprawled across her bed, scrolling through TikTok. I'm fine, just tired. Will you bring my dinner up? No. She looked up, startled by my tone. What? I said no, get it yourself. But I don't feel well. You never do. Something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe? Or recognition. Why are you being like this? Like what? Independent? Capable? Isn't that what they raised me to be? She sat up slowly. Jazz. Dinner's in 10 minutes. I turned away, but her voice stopped me. You're planning something, aren't you? I didn't answer. Downstairs, Dad was practicing his community board speech while Mom fussed with the centerpiece. Perfect timing, he beamed. I want to run something by you. Can't wait, I said, helping Mom carry dishes to the table. I've been thinking about your schedule this fall, he continued. If you take morning classes, you'll be free to drive Serenity in the afternoons. The board was very impressed with our family's commitment to supporting each other. Were they? They were. In fact, he launched into another speech about family values and community spirit, not noticing how I'd stopped listening. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The secret one. Lana, everything's ready. You sure about this? I typed back quickly. No choice now. They're renting my room starting tomorrow. Serenity, Mom called up the stairs. Dinner. I don't feel well, came the predictable response. Mom sighed. Jasmine, would you? No. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Excuse me. Dad's speech forgotten, he stared at me. I said no. She can come down herself. Mom's laugh was nervous. Don't be difficult, sweetie. You know your sister needs me, I finished. Like she needed me to give up Stanford? The silence that followed was deafening. What are you talking about? Dad's voice had gone dangerously quiet. I pulled out the envelope I'd prepared and placed it on the table. For you. Mom reached for it with trembling hands. Inside were copies of everything. The Stanford acceptance, the forged withdrawal, the hidden letters from other universities, and on top, my acceptance and full scholarship to Calden University. What is this? She whispered. This, I said, standing up, is goodbye. Dad's face turned red. Sit down. Now. No. We did what was best for this family. Mom's voice cracked. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You needed someone to take care of Serenity, to give up their life so she wouldn't have to face hers. That's not... You forged my signature, I cut in. You hid my acceptance letters. You planned my entire future without asking me, because it was easier than admitting Serenity needs to grow up. Footsteps on the stairs. Serenity had finally emerged, drawn by the raised voices. What's going on? Your sister is being selfish, Dad snapped. I laughed, actually laughed. Selfish? You stole my future. You lied to me. You raised me to be independent and capable, then punished me for being exactly what you made me. Where are you going? Serenity's voice was small. Away. Far away. To become the person you all tried to stop me from being. Mom stood up, reaching for me. You can't. I already have. I stepped back toward the door where my last bag waited. My room's already empty. Has been for days. The only things left are what you wanted to see. You're lying, Dad said, but his eyes darted toward the stairs. Check if you want, but first... I pulled out my phone, the family one, and placed it next to the envelope. You won't need to reach me on this anymore. I walked out as the chaos erupted behind me, Serenity's wails mixing with Mom's pleas and Dad's angry shouts. On the porch, Lana waited in her car, engine running. Freedom was 6 hours away. Jasmine, stop! Serenity's voice cut through the night air as I reached for Lana's car door. You can't just leave. I turned slowly. My sister stood on the porch in her pajamas, tears streaming down her face. Behind her, Mom gripped the doorframe while Dad thundered down the steps. You're making a terrible mistake, he growled. Get back inside. Now. Or what? My voice was steady. You'll forge my signature again? Hide more of my mail? We did that to protect you. No. I shook my head. You did it to protect her. I nodded toward Serenity. To keep your perfect family image intact. The devoted daughter sacrificing everything for her sick sister. That's not fair, Mom whispered. Fair? I laughed. Was it fair when you threw away my UCLA forms? When you told everyone I wasn't suited for top universities? When you rented out my room before even telling me your plans? Serenity stepped forward. But you're supposed to help me. I can't do college without you. Yes, you can. You just never had to try. You're being cruel, Mom said, but her voice wavered. Cruel? I pulled out my phone, the new one, and held it up. Should I show everyone the group chat where you and Dad planned how to sabotage my college applications? Or maybe the emails to Stanford withdrawing my acceptance without my knowledge? Dad's face went pale. How did you? I learned from the best. I cut him off. You taught me to be thorough, organized, responsible. Remember? A car door slammed behind me, Lana getting out to stand by my side. You have 2 minutes, she told my parents. Then we're leaving. This is ridiculous, Dad sputtered. You're barely 18. You can't just... I can. I'm legally an adult, with a full scholarship and housing waiting for me. Everything's already arranged. But what about me? Serenity wailed. What about my appointments, my classes? What about them? You're 16, not 6. Learn to use a bus schedule. Set your own alarm. Write your own essays. I'll call the police, Dad threatened. Lana snorted. And tell them what? That your adult daughter accepted a college scholarship? That she caught you committing mail fraud? Mom started crying then. Those quiet, manipulative tears I'd seen so many times before. We only wanted to keep our family together. No, I said softly. You wanted to keep your convenient arrangement together. The responsible daughter taking care of the helpless one. But you forgot something important. What's that? Dad demanded. You raised me to be strong, independent, capable. I stepped back toward the car. Everything you're afraid Serenity will never be. You lied to us, Serenity screamed suddenly. Sneaking around, hiding things. You mean like hiding my acceptance letters? Or forging my signature? I met her eyes. I learned deception at home, Serenity. Right here in this family. Please, Mom tried one last time. We can talk about this. Make a plan that works for everyone. No, I opened Lana's car door. You had 18 years to make plans that included what I wanted. Instead, you planned my life around her needs. Now I'm making my own plans. If you leave, Dad's voice turned hard, don't expect our support. Ever. I smiled then and saw him flinch at the expression. I never had it to begin with. Serenity rushed forward suddenly, grabbing my arm. You can't abandon me. I'm your sister. I gently removed her hand. And you've always had everything, but you never learned how to keep it. The look of shock on her face was almost worth 18 years of playing second fiddle. Let's go, I told Lana, sliding into the passenger seat. As we pulled away, I watched in the side mirror as my family became smaller and smaller. Mom collapsed against Dad. Serenity stood frozen on the lawn, and their perfect image of control shattered into pieces. You okay? Lana asked quietly. No, I answered honestly, but I will be. My phone started buzzing. My parents trying the new number already. I turned it off without reading the messages. They'd have plenty of time to realize what they'd lost. The bus station? Lana asked, turning onto the main road. The bus station, I confirmed. And Lana, thank you for everything. She reached over and squeezed my hand. That's what real family does. Behind us, my childhood home disappeared into the darkness. Ahead, lay 6 hours on a bus, then a new life 3 states away. A life where I wasn't someone's backup plan or built-in caretaker. A life that was finally completely mine. The autumn breeze carried the sound of laughter across Calden University's quad as I walked to my morning class. My phone buzzed. Lana's daily check-in. How's my favorite escapee? Living my best revenge. Succeeding, I typed back. Another message popped up. This one from Mom. Serenity failed her midterms. She needs you. Please come home. I added it to the folder of screenshots labeled consequences without responding. They'd sent hundreds of messages since I'd left. First angry, then pleading, now desperate. Hey, Jasmine! Caden jogged up beside me, his laptop tucked under his arm. Ready to destroy Professor Martinez's research project? I grinned. My academic rival turned friend had become an unexpected ally in my new life. Born ready. Did you finish the statistical analysis? Hours ago. We're going to blow the other teams away. Inside the research lab, our presentation materials were already set up. This was my element now, not being someone's crutch, but pushing boundaries, challenging minds, building a future. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. The board position fell through. Your mother's having anxiety attacks. Is this what you wanted? Everything okay? Caden asked, noticing my expression. Just karma doing its job, I said, putting the phone away. After class, I found an email from Serenity. I hate you. Mom and Dad are fighting all the time. Dad lost his position because people found out about the mail fraud. Everything's falling apart, and it's your fault. I started typing, no, it's falling apart because, but deleted it. They needed to learn these lessons without me. My new phone lit up. Lana again. You should know. Serenity's struggling bad. Like, might not graduate bad. Your mom's been calling my mom crying about it. Not my problem anymore, I replied. I know. Just thought you'd want to see your handiwork. Turns out little sister can't function without her backup brain. I was still staring at the message when Caden dropped into the seat across from me in the library. Earth to Jasmine. Project celebration dinner? Sorry, family drama. The ones who forged your signature? His eyes narrowed. Want me to hack their emails? I laughed. No need. They're doing just fine destroying themselves. Good. He pushed a coffee toward me. Because you've got better things to focus on. Like how Professor Martinez wants us to present our research at the national conference. My heart jumped. What? Just got the email. We're going to Washington, baby. First freshman ever selected. I grabbed my phone, started to share the news, then stopped. My achievements weren't family property anymore. Instead, I texted Lana, guess who's presenting at nationals? Her response was immediate. Queen, show them what they lost. Later that night, alone in my dorm room, I opened my laptop to find an email from Mom. I understand now. What we did was wrong. Your father's pride destroyed everything. Serenity's therapist says we enabled her dependency. We're all in family counseling. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know. You were right to leave. For the first time since walking out, tears pricked my eyes. My phone rang. Lana's ringtone. Hey, did you see Mom's email? Yeah. Are you okay? I looked around my room, at my research papers, my conference acceptance letter, the life I'd built from scratch. I'm better than okay. I'm free. They're learning the hard way, Lana said softly. Good. I wiped my eyes. That's the only way they ever would. A knock at my door. Caden with takeout and project notes. Study session? Always, I called back. Lana, I gotta go. Real life awaits. Go get him, girl. I let Caden in, spreading our materials across my desk. Ready to change the world? With you? Definitely. My phone buzzed one last time. Serenity. I get it now. Why you left. I'm sorry I was part of it. I'm learning to do things myself. It's hard, but I think I needed this. I showed Caden the message. Think I should respond? He considered it carefully. Depends. Are you ready to be heard instead of just used? Maybe. I started typing. Learning to stand alone isn't easy, but it's worth it. Trust me, I know. Then I turned off my phone and turned to my work. My real work, not the emotional labor they trained me for. Outside my window, the campus lights twinkled like stars, each one a possibility they'd tried to deny me. They'd wanted to clip my wings to keep their nest intact. Instead, they taught me how to soar. And from up here, the view was perfect.
My name is Evelyn, and I'm 38 years old. I was raised by a devoted single mother after my father passed away when I was in kindergarten. Despite our financial struggles, my mother, brother, and I found joy and contentment in our small family unit. Growing up in these circumstances, I developed frugal habits that carried into adulthood. Even when I began earning a decent salary, I eventually married Albert, a wealthy man I met through mutual friends. He was kind and introduced me to a lifestyle I had never imagined. However, our marriage quickly revealed stark differences in our views on money and gender roles. Albert envisioned a traditional home where I would take on the role of a homemaker, while I was deeply committed to maintaining my career and financial independence. Before we married, Albert had hinted at his preference for me to adopt traditional domestic roles. I made it clear, however, that I wanted to continue working, at least until we decided to start a family. He reluctantly agreed, and we proceeded with our wedding. But after the marriage, the reality of juggling a full-time job and household responsibilities became overwhelming. While I worked tirelessly both at the office and at home, Albert settled comfortably into the role of a traditional husband. He contributed nothing to the household chores, coming home each evening to relax, while I managed everything. This imbalance began to strain our relationship, and I found myself questioning if this was all our union had to offer. Even as my dissatisfaction grew, I hesitated to express my feelings. I feared Albert might pressure me to quit my job entirely. I naively hoped that having children might strengthen our bond, but as the distance between us deepened, I started doubting the feasibility of starting a family. One evening, I finally broached the topic with Albert, suggesting that we consider having children. At 32, I was acutely aware of the ticking biological clock, but Albert's response was dismissive and cutting. "Kids? You're already so tired from work. How would you manage raising children?" His words stung, marking the beginning of a downward spiral in our marriage. A few weeks later, as I was preparing to leave for a business trip, Albert surprised me by wishing me well and hinting at a big surprise when I returned. For a fleeting moment, I felt a flicker of hope, but when I arrived home, my world was turned upside down. The locks had been changed. Confused and alarmed, I called Albert, only to be greeted with shocking news. He had filed for divorce. Even more devastating, he revealed that he had secretly married his lover. He accused me of marrying him for his money and demanded I relinquish any claim to our shared property. I refused to be intimidated. When Albert attempted to pressure me into signing documents that would waive my rights, I insisted on a fair and mutual agreement. This led to tense confrontations, during which Albert belittled my financial status and mocked my upbringing. He even threatened to discard my belongings. Several days later, Albert called me in a panic. "What have you done?" he demanded. "What are you talking about?" I asked, puzzled by his frantic tone. "They've kicked me out of the apartment," he exclaimed, his voice trembling. "You're still staying there?" I replied calmly. "That's technically trespassing. It's a new month, and I'm no longer listed as a tenant." "But it's my place," Albert protested. "Actually," I reminded him, "it was a company apartment." Albert's carefully curated world began to unravel, exposing the lies and betrayal that had defined our marriage. As I moved forward, I found strength in reclaiming my independence and leaving behind a relationship that had only brought me pain. "I'm the leaseholder, so obviously, you can't stay there now," Albert argued, his tone smug. "That's ridiculous," I shot back, struggling to keep my composure. "Albert, how could you think it's okay to force me out without proper notice? As the leaseholder, you don't have absolute control over the property. It's a rental, not your personal asset. You can't just change the locks at will." Albert snorted dismissively. "I thought I made it clear, it was my lease agreement. But whatever, the property technically belongs to the apartment manager, not me, so I didn't need their permission to change the locks." He still didn't get it. I took a steadying breath. "Here's what you're missing. I already terminated the lease before you pulled your little stunt. Legally, I was entitled to stay until the end of the month. By changing the locks, you've tampered with someone else's property. That could easily be seen as criminal damage." "Wait, what?" His bravado cracked. "Why terminate the lease so soon? Criminal damage? Is that why there are police at my door right now? I'm afraid to open it." I couldn't hide my exasperation. "The police might be there for more than just trespassing or lock tampering. You should talk to them. Oh, and just so you know, I reported you for forging divorce papers. Filing fake documents with falsified signatures is private document fraud. Divorce papers require mutual consent and authentic signatures." "Albert." There was silence on the line as he absorbed the weight of my words. I pressed on. "Those papers you filed are invalid. And as for Judy, your supposed wife, that's not a legal marriage. How did I find out? Did you assume I was in the dark?" His voice faltered. You know about Judy? Of course, I said sharply. I hired a detective agency to investigate while you were parading her around. They uncovered everything, including your little wedding ceremony while I was away on a business trip. I took time off from work to gather evidence and prepare my case. I also discovered you were sneaking Judy into our home. Albert was utterly silent now, likely feeling the walls close in. After a long pause, he stammered, please don't tell Judy I'm still married to you. I couldn't help the small, bitter laugh that escaped me. Why would I? It's not my responsibility to clean up your mess. But here's a reality check. Since you committed adultery while still legally my husband, Judy is now liable for compensation. I've already sent her a demand for reparation via express delivery. She didn't know you were married, did she? Too bad. At this point, I can't retract the claim even if I wanted to. Albert's breath hitched audibly. She hasn't called me yet, so maybe she hasn't seen it. She will soon, I said coolly, and by the way, you might want to deal with the police instead of worrying about Judy. I'll ignore the police, he blurted, panic creeping into his voice. I'm going to Judy's house now to intercept the letter before she or her family sees it. He hung up abruptly. I smiled grimly, knowing his efforts would be futile. The letter was sent as registered mail and addressed solely to Judy. Even if he intercepted the postman, he wouldn't be able to claim it. Several hours later, Albert called again, sounding utterly defeated. He recounted his failed attempt. I was there when the postman arrived. Judy answered the door and signed for the letter before I could stop her. She opened it right in front of me. And? I asked, feigning casual disinterest. She read it, he mumbled, his voice hollow. She threw me out of her house. Good luck, Albert, I said curtly before hanging up. I'll take that envelope, Albert demanded from the postman. And who are you? You don't live here, do you? The postman asked, his tone skeptical. I practically live here. I'm married to Judy, so I have the right to receive her mail, Albert replied, his voice laced with desperation. That's not how it works, the postman said flatly. This is registered mail, and it's addressed to Judy. I can only hand it to her. Just give it to me, Albert insisted, his frustration growing. If you're that eager, you can ask Judy for permission, the postman said firmly, unmoved by Albert's demands. At that moment, Judy stepped outside, her face puzzled by the commotion. What's going on here? She asked, her eyes darting between Albert and the postman. Albert, why are you making all this noise? This envelope is for you, Judy, the postman explained, handing her the registered letter. Sorry for the disturbance, but this man insisted on taking it. Judy took the envelope, clearly baffled. A demand for reparation? She read aloud, her confusion deepening. Albert, what's this about? You were married? Albert paled and fumbled for an excuse. It's nothing serious, just my ex-wife being spiteful. She's a little unpredictable, he said, forcing a weak smile. I didn't want to bring it up because it's embarrassing, but I was divorced a long time ago. Judy crossed her arms, unconvinced. If that's true, why is she demanding reparation? If you were divorced before we met, this shouldn't even be an issue. Albert hesitated. She's probably just upset that I moved on and got remarried, he muttered, trying to dismiss the matter. But his excuses fell apart when Judy found my contact details in the envelope and decided to call me directly. Our conversation left no room for doubt. I explained everything, Albert's affair, the invalid divorce papers, and even the elaborate wedding ceremony they had held while he was still legally married to me. I also informed her that the marriage registration hadn't been submitted yet. Albert had apparently planned to file it on April Fool's Day, though he hesitated because he wasn't sure the divorce had been finalized. Judy was stunned by the revelation. Albert, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, hastily left her house. A few hours later, he called me, sounding desperate. He begged to meet at a nearby cafe to discuss the matter further. When I arrived, Albert immediately launched into a plea. Evelyn, please withdraw the reparation claim. Let's just pretend we've been separated for a long time and are officially divorced. I'll apologize to Judy and tell her I kept it a secret because I was embarrassed. Maybe I can fix this. I stared at him, unimpressed. Do you think I'm still desperate to stay married to you? I was already planning to file for divorce, but since you cheated, you'll pay reparation, I said firmly. You're just trying to extort money from me. Typical, Albert snapped, his frustration boiling over. What do you even want? To ruin my life? I leaned back, maintaining my composure. You don't seem to understand your position. If I say no, you can't marry Judy. Your bigamous status will be exposed. and that will cause you even more problems. So, yes, you'll pay reparation, and we'll finalize the divorce. Albert sighed, defeated. Fine, I'll pay. Let's get this over with, he grumbled. Just sign the divorce papers and let me go. And about the property division? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Or are you planning to fight me on that too? Reparation should be enough, he snapped. We already agreed to waive property division, so let's make it official and be done with it. Good, at least you're not being completely unreasonable, I said with a faint smile. We went to a public notary, where we formalized the terms of our divorce, including the reparation and property division. After completing the paperwork, we headed to City Hall to submit the final documents, officially ending our marriage. As we left City Hall, I glanced at Albert one last time. Well, that's it. No more property disputes, no more entanglements. I hope you've learned something from all this, I said, my voice calm but firm. Albert didn't respond, he simply walked away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched him go, feeling a sense of closure and relief. I tried to keep the conversation light. What are you saying? That I'm the one benefiting here? By the way, do you even have assets after paying me reparations? Judy will also claim damages. You know, she even mentioned charging you for the wedding expenses. Albert retorted dismissively, that's impossible. I'm marrying Judy. She can't claim damages. We're divorced now, so there should be no problem. He was still entangled in his fantasy, refusing to face reality. Albert, you committed marriage fraud. You had a wedding while still legally married to me. Do you really think Judy still believes your story? I asked, incredulous at his denial. Marriage fraud? That's ridiculous. Judy will believe me, he insisted, though doubt was creeping into his voice. I leaned forward, revealing more. Believe that if you want, but I heard from Judy directly. Also, weren't the guests at your wedding paid actors? You still owe them, you know. Albert's expression faltered. You know about that? I haven't paid them yet. What does it matter to you? You could have just taken the property division and been better off, he snapped, frustration breaking through his tone. That's what I wanted to tell you. Even if we had divided the property, you would have benefited more, I explained calmly, ready to correct his misunderstanding. Albert scoffed. What are you talking about? Poor woman, your family is poor, and you only make $210,000 a year, right? Even if you got a raise, it'd barely hit $225,000. You don't have any property. I smiled faintly. You keep calling me poor, so I thought you might be mistaken. Yes, my salary was indeed $130,000, but you know I work for a foreign company, right? It seems you have no real interest in me. I became a director of the U.S. division. It's not $130,000 per year, but per month, $210,000 per month, making my annual income $2.52 million. Albert blinked, clearly confused. You're still bad with numbers. How do you manage to keep a job? It's $200,000 a year, he muttered, stumbling over his own disbelief. $210,000 per month, Albert, I repeated, letting the weight of my success settle in. Of course, I haven't had much chance to spend it, so I've been saving for the future. The savings from before our marriage aren't part of the property division, but there's still a considerable amount since our marriage. As your wife, I could have claimed half of it. Albert's bravado crumbled. I'll get the divorce papers corrected. Are you okay? After all this, do you think I'd gladly undo the divorce if you had that much money? You don't need to claim reparations, right? After all the contempt you've shown me? Absolutely not. This reparation is for the emotional distress you caused me. Honestly, I should claim more, and since it's official now, make sure you pay it, even if it's in installments, I said firmly. I'll be left with nothing, Albert mumbled. He looked utterly defeated. And don't think about going back to that apartment. Your belongings have already been moved to your parents' house. You thought you had few belongings, because I moved most of them beforehand. Were you really that indifferent to notice? I continued, driving the point home. Albert's shoulders slumped. So now I have to go back to my parents' house? They don't know anything yet. Let me explain. Don't bother. I've already told them everything. It's only right to explain why we're divorcing. Oh, and your father said, don't ever step over our threshold again, I said, cutting him off. Overwhelmed, Albert sank into his seat, and I left the cafe. Later, I heard he caused a scene at the police station. Ignoring my advice, he returned to the apartment, sitting aimlessly until the manager called the police. He was taken away, though it wasn't clear whether it was for trespassing, falsifying divorce papers, or obstructing public duties. Eventually, his parents took responsibility for him. After speaking with me and learning about Judy, they decided apologizing to her family and paying damages was the priority. They went to Judy's house, knelt before her family, and settled everything, even covering the wedding expenses. Despite this, I decided to pursue legal action against Albert for forging the divorce papers. He offered a settlement, but I didn't withdraw the lawsuit. I wanted him to understand the gravity of his actions. With everything handed over to my lawyer, the process wasn't too burdensome for me. In the end, Albert was convicted. His company fired him for being absent without leave. He ended up working at a relative's construction company, living in a basic shed-like structure without electricity, subsisting on just $6 a day for food, which his father deducted from his earnings. His parents were more stringent than I expected, determined to have him repay every debt before asking him to leave. As for me, after the divorce was finalized, I was offered a position at our company's head office overseas. Accepting the offer, I moved abroad, relieved to distance myself from Albert's potential interference. Work dominated my life at first, but a pleasant surprise awaited me. I entered a new relationship with a foreign executive at the head office. Things progressed quickly, and I am now pregnant, with plans to marry soon. I've been open with my partner about my past and my tumultuous relationship with Albert. He has been nothing but supportive. We've discussed plans for co-parenting, with him taking paternity leave while I return to work after maternity leave. His cultural perspective on sharing parenting responsibilities has been refreshing and transformative. Having endured so much turmoil with my ex-husband, I finally feel like I'm on the path to true happiness. My experience taught me that while divorce isn't always the desired outcome, enduring in silence is never a virtue. Honest discussions can lead to meaningful resolutions, and sometimes, divorce is a necessary step toward a better life. Shouldn't you be helping more around the house? If this is the kind of spouse you're going to be, maybe it's better if you leave. My mother-in-law's sharp words cut through the room, her piercing stare leaving no room for misinterpretation. Stunned by her harshness, I glanced at my sister-in-law, who added dismissively, "You always look exhausted and never seem to get anything done." Feeling overwhelmed, I turned to my husband, Matthew, hoping for support. "This is too much. Don't you think your mom and sister are being unfair?" I asked, my voice trembling, but Matthew's response only deepened the blow. "I agree with them," he said bluntly. "I'm swamped with work, and it's a problem that you're not contributing more at home. Things are running smoothly with the new part-time worker at the cafe, and honestly, you're just slowing us down. Maybe you should consider staying somewhere else." His words felt like a slap. I looked at the three of them, their judgment bearing down on me. Anger surged within me, but I forced myself to stay calm. Taking a deep breath, I replied, "I need time to think. My name is Lori, and I'm 35 years old. Balancing my career and household responsibilities has always been a priority for me. Like many women, I juggle work and family life, striving to excel at both. I love my job and take pride in the company I joined straight out of college." One morning, as I prepared for work, Matthew approached me with a file stuffed with receipts and bills. "Lori, can you handle this? The cafe's finances are a mess," he said, looking exasperated. I tried to keep things light, smiling as I replied, "Sorry, I'm not good at that kind of stuff." Matthew and I had met when he worked part-time at a cafe I frequented. We hit it off after several conversations, started dating, and eventually got married. Now, he owns the cafe, but paperwork has never been his strength. It often fell on me to sort it out. As I sighed at yet another task added to my plate, my mother-in-law chimed in, "Lori, I'm craving Chinese tonight. Make sure to rinse the rice well. Also, Denise and the kids are visiting this weekend, so plan the meals accordingly." "Sure, I understand," I replied, trying to mask my frustration as I hurried out the door to escape the mounting pressures at home. Initially, I was filled with excitement for my new life with Matthew, but that enthusiasm faded when he proposed a significant change. "My mom seems lonely living by herself. Why don't we all move into our big house together?" he suggested. And so, we moved in with his mother. It quickly became apparent that household upkeep wasn't her strong suit. After my father-in-law passed away, she lived off her pension, spending most of it dining out or ordering in. The responsibility of maintaining the house fell squarely on my shoulders. Matthew, holding traditional views, believed housework was a woman's duty, leaving me to manage everything. Weekends, which I had hoped would offer a reprieve, became even more chaotic when Denise visited with her kids, adding to the workload. One day, Denise made an announcement. "I'm getting divorced, and we'll be moving back here with the kids next month," she declared. Stunned, I managed to respond, "It must have been tough. When are you moving?" "As soon as possible," she replied. Though surprised, I held on to a sliver of hope. Perhaps her presence would ease the burden. We had a decent relationship, and I thought this change might bring us closer, but reality painted a different picture. Denise, raised with the same mindset as her mother, seemed allergic to housework. She spent her days lounging on the sofa, engrossed in TV, often with a snack in hand. I couldn't help but wonder if her aversion to domestic responsibilities had contributed to her marital troubles. Instead of alleviating the workload, her presence added to it. I now had to prepare extra meals for her children and pack lunches for kindergarten. My hopes of shared responsibilities proved futile. At work, my responsibilities had also increased. Early mornings, overtime, and late returns left me drained. Coming home to a cluttered, chaotic house only intensified my exhaustion. The mess and constant demands wore me down. "Is dinner ready yet? Why are you home so late?" The questions, laced with judgment, were a daily reminder of the growing strain in my life. When I arrived home, the familiar sight of clutter and an endless list of chores awaited me. No sooner had I set my bag down than the sharp remarks began. "Lori, there's a mountain of laundry waiting," my mother-in-law snapped. "Being busy isn't an excuse to slack off." Inside, I wanted to shout, "I'm trying my best," but as usual, I swallowed my frustration and held back. My sister-in-law often added her 2 cents, her tone light but biting. "Lori, standing up to mom is bold, but for the kids' sake, shouldn't you put more effort into making homemade meals?" Tired and nearing my limit, I couldn't help but retort, "If you've got so much free time, maybe you could help out with the chores once in a while." Her response was a dismissive laugh. "Haha, since Matthew owns a store, you don't even need to work, right? Maybe you should try harder at home." Their constant jabs piled on, each one heavier than the last. The expectation that I should somehow do more, despite my already packed schedule, weighed on me. One night, pushed to my breaking point, I decided to confront Matthew. "I've been incredibly busy lately," I began, my voice trembling with exhaustion. "Neither your mother nor your sister helps out with the chores. It's really hard to manage everything alone." Matthew's reaction stung like a slap. "Lori, are you speaking ill of my family?" he asked, his tone cold and defensive. "That's not what I mean," I explained, trying to stay calm, "but it's overwhelming to do this all by myself. If you could just help occasionally, it would make things easier." His reply was blunt and dismissive. "I'm busy managing the store, it's not like a regular job. And isn't housework a wife's responsibility?" Crushed by his indifference, I retreated to my thoughts, sitting alone in the kitchen. "If they won't help, then I'll find a way to help myself," I resolved, my frustration turning into determination. I grabbed my phone, opened my favorite shopping app, and started adding items to my cart. A few days later, my reinforcements arrived: a high-tech washing machine, a robotic vacuum, and a sleek rice cooker. Each appliance felt like a lifeline, offering me a glimmer of relief. As I set up the new washing machine, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law walked in, their faces a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "Wow, Lori, you got such a fancy washing machine. Wasn't the old one still working?" my mother-in-law asked, her skepticism barely hidden. I smiled calmly. "It was, but it was slow, and this one can handle the laundry much faster," I explained. Their attention quickly shifted to the robotic vacuum and kitchen gadgets. "You've upgraded everything," my sister-in-law noted, her tone slightly accusatory. "These will help us keep the house clean and save time," I said, a hint of pride in my voice. Later, my mother-in-law called me aside. "Lori, do we really need all these new appliances?" she asked sharply. "Aren't we relying too much on machines?" Keeping my tone even, I replied, "The older ones weren't as efficient. Since Matthew is so busy with the store, I thought this would make things run smoother for everyone." Matthew, who had overheard the conversation, added hesitantly, "Maybe we should be more frugal." Despite their reservations, I held firm. These appliances were more than just tools, they were my small act of rebellion, a way to reclaim a bit of sanity amidst the chaos. Conceited? Maybe you're right, I thought, but frustration simmered inside me. The conversation escalated quickly. "Are you even considering our household needs?" my mother-in-law challenged, her tone sharp. I stumbled over my words, feeling cornered. "I am, but I'm just a bit exhausted," I admitted, my voice faltering. That's enough, she snapped, disbelief dripping from every syllable. I can't believe you're our daughter-in-law, my sister-in-law added with a disdainful glare. I'll watch over Matthew. We don't need someone like you here. Desperate, I turned to Matthew for support, but his cold reply cut deeper than their words. I understand what Mom and Sis are saying. It's difficult having a wife who, his words trailed off, leaving an icy silence in their wake. As they left the room, I sat there, their words weighing heavily on me, yet, amidst the pain, a flicker of resolve ignited in my heart. I had made my choices, those appliances were not just tools, but lifelines. I needed them to manage the chaos and preserve my sanity. Matthew, however, wasn't finished. Looking at me with a smug, almost cruel smile, he said, I have my store, so I decide how to spend my money, but being with someone who spends without thinking might be too hard for me. His words stung, but I held my composure, silently counting to 12. With a touch of malice, he continued, also, I've noticed things have been going well with the new part-time girl at the store. She's more attractive than you are now. Maybe it's time for you to find a new place to live. A wave of anger rose within me, but I forced it down. I took a deep breath and replied calmly, all right, I'll look for a new home. Matthew's smugness grew. Finally, you understand. I'll feel much better without you around. That night, Matthew signed the divorce papers without hesitation. I packed my essentials, took the papers, and moved to a nearby weekly rental. No one tried to stop me, and as I left, I couldn't help but wonder if they had ever truly cared. After finalizing the divorce at the city office, I found a stylish apartment and began anew. Around the same time, an unexpected opportunity came my way, a promotion to section manager, a role I had previously turned down due to family obligations. I embraced it with vigor, throwing myself into my work with a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. One busy day, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my former mother-in-law's name. Surprised, I ignored it. We had no reason to be in contact anymore. A year passed, and I had almost forgotten those calls when, on a relaxing weekend, my phone rang again. This time, curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Is something wrong? I answered cautiously. Lori, I finally got through. I didn't think you'd answer after so many calls. Her voice carried an unfamiliar uncertainty. Well, it's been a while. What's going on? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She hesitated before speaking. How's your new life? Despite her probing, I responded cheerfully. It's great. I love my new apartment. Work is going smoothly, and I even got a promotion. I'm enjoying my freedom. That's good, Lori. Can you come back home? She asked abruptly, catching me off guard. Why? I blurted out, suspicion creeping into my voice. We're struggling financially, she admitted after a pause. I wasn't surprised. Matthew's cafe only brings in about $2,000 a month, right? If no one else in the family works, things could be tough, I said, my tone measured. You know about that? She asked, clearly startled. Yes, I replied simply, already well aware of their precarious situation. I had always managed the accounting for Matthew's cafe, while he flaunted the image of a successful owner, oblivious to the true state of his business. It was almost laughable how unaware he was. I handled all the finances, from procurement to covering his mounting losses, so of course, I knew the truth. You knew all this and didn't tell us? We had no idea you were doing so well in such a big company, or that you were contributing so much to the household expenses, my former mother-in-law exclaimed. I nodded. Yes, I contributed over $5,000 each month. That's what kept everything afloat. The revelation left her momentarily speechless. After I left, the reality of their financial situation must have hit hard. Lori, can you please come back? She pleaded again. Curious, I asked, how's Matthew's cafe doing now? Her sigh was heavy. We might have to close soon. The part-time workers keep quitting. I couldn't help but smirk inwardly. Well, that's what happens when the owner's pride gets in the way of proper management. How many women out there do you think would support a guy like that? She faltered, searching for words. Since you left, the house has been a mess. It's chaotic, with things scattered everywhere. We've been eating out because no one cooks, and the washing machine broke down, she admitted, painting a picture of complete disarray. You can't afford a new washing machine? I asked, intrigued. She hesitated. We relied on the appliances you took back. I didn't realize how much we depended on them. I raised an eyebrow. I bought those for my convenience, so it was fair for me to take them, right? Yes, But I never realized housework was this challenging, she admitted grudgingly. I couldn't resist a bit of sarcasm. With 3 adults in the house, how can it be that hard? What are Matthew and Denise doing? Her voice grew tired. Matthew has been lazing around at home since sales dropped and his staff started quitting. He used to spend money recklessly, and now he's despondent. Denise doesn't help with anything and still expects an allowance from me. Living on just my pension for the 3 of us is hard. I sighed, the memories of their dismissive attitudes replaying in my mind. Denise once told me I was unnecessary because she was there, I replied, my tone laced with irony. Desperation crept into her voice. Lori, we're really in trouble. Please, reconsider. I paused before answering firmly. I have no intention of returning. Living with all that baggage must be hard. She sounded lost for words, and I almost felt a pang of pity. Just as I was about to end the call, she added, there's an issue with the property tax. We might have to let go of the house. The weight of her words hung in the air, but I remained resolute. I see. You'll have to figure that out as a family. Without waiting for a response, I ended the call and blocked her number. Back in my apartment, I held my favorite mug of coffee, the aroma soothing me as I gazed at the serene view outside. A spontaneous smile crossed my face, reveling in the quiet and freedom of my new life. A few months later, while wandering through the old neighborhood, I noticed the cafe was shut down, its once lively atmosphere now silent and empty. Nostalgia tugged at me briefly as I passed by. Not far away, I spotted a sold sign outside my former in-laws' house. By chance, I bumped into an old neighbor who filled me in. They sold the house quickly and moved to a small apartment. It's been rough for them, constant arguments and even complaints about garbage piling up. It's become a bit of gossip around here. I nodded, thinking about how a little effort could have changed their circumstances, yet, they never tried. As I walked away, my thoughts drifted to the life I had built for myself. Recently, a charming coworker confessed his admiration for my hard work, and we'd started dating. For the first time, I felt genuine excitement about what the future could hold. If I get married again, I mused, I want it to be a truly happy one. The thought filled me with hope, and I couldn't help but smile, ready to embrace whatever came next. When James came home that evening, his face was clouded with worry as he broke the news of his demotion. I nearly dropped my cup of tea in surprise. We had been bracing ourselves for the impact of his company's downturn and the upcoming restructuring, but I never imagined it would affect us so personally. As his wife, I knew my support was needed now more than ever during this tough time. It's just bad luck, I reassured him, offering a weak smile to lighten the mood. Times are tough, but I'm still working, so we'll be okay. I'm Anna, 46 years old, and I work full-time in a back office. I live with James, who is 4 years older than me, our high school sophomore daughter, Stephanie, and my 70-year-old mother-in-law, Linda. Although Linda and I occasionally clash, we rarely interact, since I spend most of my day at work. I choose not to let her behavior bother me too much. To Stephanie, I explained, your dad's upset about his job, but let's try to keep things normal for him. However, James began to open up about his frustrations more frequently, often directing his anger at those he trusted most, including me. The next day, while I was cleaning the hallway on my day off, James walked by and made a cutting remark. You've put on some weight since we got married, haven't you? He said, his tone sharp. I paused, trying to stay calm. Well, I am 46, and it's normal to gain weight around menopause, I replied, noting that my recent health checkup had shown I was within a healthy range. But his next words stung deeply. Forget the health checkup. You look unsightly, and it's embarrassing, he snapped. You're just ugly. Without waiting for my response, he retreated to his room. I stood there, stunned, my side instinctively pinched between my fingers. Yes, I could feel a slight bulge around my waist, but his harsh words felt like a piercing arrow. I was overwhelmed by the intensity of his criticism. It hurt more than I could explain, coming from someone I had supported so fully. I had forgotten I was holding the window squeegee in my hand, and it slipped from my grasp, clattering loudly on the hallway floor. From that moment on, James's behavior toward me grew increasingly distant and harsh. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law, who had overheard our argument, decided it was her place to intervene, and the tension in the house escalated. One day, while carrying a laundry basket up the stairs, I found her waiting at the top, blocking my way. With a disapproving sigh, she commented, "Oh, how dreadful. If only you weren't so overweight, we could pass each other more easily on the stairs. I wouldn't have to wait here, blocked by your size." At dinner that evening, as I served chicken tenders, she pointedly remarked, "Isn't this the kind of food that's contributing to your weight gain?" Before I could respond, she snatched my plate away, insisting, "Only the non-overweight family members should eat. According to my gynecologist, it's normal to gain or lose weight after middle age," yet my mother-in-law, slender as a dried-up tree, seemed oblivious to these natural changes and continued her relentless taunts. Despite growing accustomed to her irritating remarks, what truly pained me was the shift in James's attitude. Since the incident, James stopped talking to me altogether. He offered no gratitude, no compliments, not even during meals I had carefully prepared. He ate in silence, then left the table without a word. Even our shared spaces, like the bathroom and bedroom, felt isolating, as he came and went without acknowledging my presence, turning his back to me each night to bury himself in his smartphone. I felt invisible. One night, summoning the courage to confront him, I asked in a soft voice, "Is there a reason you're ignoring me?" His response was chillingly indifferent. "Not really. I just prefer not to engage much at home," he said coldly. Then, more harshly, he added, "I don't want to be associated with someone in the family who's this overweight. If you really care about me, you'll lose some weight." His words were disheartening. Despite my daily 1.5-mile walk to commute, his lack of understanding and empathy weighed heavily on me. Age was bringing inevitable changes, but his coldness felt like an unbridgeable gap between us. I had been trying my best to manage my weight, especially considering the typical gains that come with age. Yet to James, it was as if my efforts didn't matter. "If you're not seeing results, you might as well not be trying," he snapped. "Don't speak to me anymore." From that point on, he completely shut me out, refusing to acknowledge my existence. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law continued her relentless jabs about my diet. Whenever meat, fruits, or rice appeared on the table, she scrutinized my choices, asking, "Are you supposed to eat that? Do you realize what you're doing to yourself?" I had hoped things would get better, but the strain between us only deepened. Eventually, I found myself limited to eating only salads and boiled vegetables, while James sat across from me, silently pushing his food around, his chopsticks moving mechanically. The atmosphere in our home had grown so cold and distant that it felt like our marriage was slowly falling apart. In quiet moments, I found myself packing a few belongings, wondering if it was time to leave. If this was how James chose to treat me, maybe walking away was the only way to reclaim my dignity. When I confided in my daughter, Stephanie, she immediately offered her unwavering support. "I understand, Mom," she said, her voice full of empathy. "It's hard to watch Dad and Grandma constantly pick on you. I'll go with you. We can live with Grandma and Grandpa, and I can still finish high school there." Her words were a comfort, and I felt a flicker of relief. Perhaps leaving wasn't as impossible as it seemed. Just as I was bracing myself for what I thought would be the end, James approached me with an unexpected smile, suggesting we share a drink together. "Tomorrow's the first day of my demotion," he said, his tone attempting to sound light-hearted. "Let's have a drink, just this once." He even suggested making mimosas for dinner, a gesture that seemed out of place after everything that had happened. It had been the first time he had spoken to me directly since revealing his demotion. As he placed the drinks on the table, I couldn't shake the oddness of the situation. His behavior felt forced, as if he were trying too hard to pretend that things were normal between us. He turned his back to grab the TV remote, and I seized the opportunity to discreetly sniff the drink he had poured for me. The faint but unmistakable scent of something familiar from my own cooking struck me. It was the sharp, acrid scent of vinegar. Anger flared within me. How could he think I wouldn't recognize this? How could he be so cruel, so thoughtless, to serve me this? I had reached my breaking point. Between my mother-in-law's constant jabs and James's prolonged neglect, I could no longer bear the weight of it all. It was time for change, a drastic one, for my own well-being and, more importantly, for Stephanie's future. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. James, could you please fetch the Bauer cheese from the fridge? I asked, my voice calm and polite, masking the storm that raged within me. It's from the local dairy farm and it's delicious. It'll be nice for family time. My tone was hopeful, as though this simple request could somehow restore a sense of normalcy to our fractured household. As he headed to the fridge, I took the chance to switch my glass with the one on the seat next to me, the one meant for Linda. When James returned with the cheese, I brightly announced, now that we have our snacks, I'll go call Stephanie and Linda. Dinner's ready. My voice rang out through the house, and soon, my mother-in-law and daughter joined us at the table. Tonight's dinner was a departure from the usual, chicken noodle soup, Beaufort cheese, and the swapped mimosa, with Stephanie opting for juice. The tension in the room hung thick as we began to eat. Let's dig in, Stephanie said, trying to break the silence. I took a sip of the drink, noting how intently James was watching me, his smile strained. Yeah, it's quite good, I said, deliberately loud enough for him to hear. He muttered a response, but I ignored him, focusing instead on my salad. I took another sip of the mimosa, my patience thinning. Suddenly, Linda let out a startled scream, spitting a stream of red liquid onto her plate. It looked like something out of a horror movie. Wait, Grandma, what happened? Stephanie exclaimed, jumping to her feet in alarm as some of the liquid splashed onto her salad. Did you choke? Are you okay? She quickly grabbed a towel and handed it to Linda, who was wiping her mouth in shock. What is this, Grandma? Stephanie asked, her concern growing. Your mouth, it's like a spicy cobra. Linda, still sputtering, shot a glare at me. He put it in my drink, she shouted, trying to lunge toward me. But I calmly brushed her hand aside. It wasn't me. James made the drinks, I replied, pointing the blame squarely at him. The shock on Linda's face was evident. What? She screeched, her lips still stained from the sauce. She turned to glare at James, who was visibly trembling. I leaned forward, placing my hand on the table, adding pressure to my words. You thought you could sneak it into the mimosa, didn't you? I asked, my voice soft but firm. I could detect the subtle difference in the taste, even if it was slight, and I wasn't going to let him off the hook. The tension at the table was palpable as Linda's eyes narrowed at James, who was now trying to avoid eye contact. The tension in the room was palpable as James's deceptive attempt unraveled, shifting the dynamics of our already strained evening. The taste hit me immediately, that familiar fiery kick of the hot sauce from Georgia, the one with a hint of lime that I'd discovered at a food fair. It was more appealing to me than the infamous death sauce, a little bit of heat tempered by that subtle citrus note. I confronted James firmly, naming the sauce I had recognized from our shared cooking experiences. Wait, you added that sauce? I asked, making it clear that I'd detected his sneaky addition to the drink. My mother-in-law probably didn't notice due to the mimosa's aroma, or perhaps she mistook the lime for being part of the drink's intended flavor, but I knew exactly what had been done. It was a malicious prank, and it had gone too far. Wait, Dad did that? Stephanie's voice broke the tension, her face a picture of disbelief. James, cornered, muttered a reluctant confession. I intended for Anna to have it. You should switch it with yours. His words were almost desperate now, attempting to justify the malicious act. Just because she realized it was meant for me, she wants to pass it off to me? I'm not touching that dangerous concoction, I said firmly, refusing to back down. Why did you think such a stunt was acceptable? James shifted uncomfortably, offering a pathetic excuse. You were putting on weight, and spicy food boosts metabolism, so I thought I'd help. I scoffed, dismissing his flimsy excuse. That's pathetic, I said, disgusted by his attempt to deflect. Trying to act like you're helping me with a prank like this? Embarrassing. Under the pressure of my glare, James shuffled uncomfortably in his chair. I'm not crazy. This is a legitimate reason to support your diet. Here, swap your cup with mine and have a taste, I made it for you, he insisted, retreating slightly as he saw I wasn't budging. I stood up, grabbing the cup containing the fiery concoction he'd intended for my mother-in-law and placed it firmly in front of him. After ignoring me for so long and treating me like I'm invisible, Did you honestly expect me to drink something you just made out of the blue? Did that not cross your mind? The words came out in a cold, firm challenge. It's childish. Take responsibility. Taste it, since you made it. The tension in the room escalated as I closed the gap between us. The slap of my hand on the table echoed through the room, sending a shockwave of silence across the space. James, likely trying to avoid the confrontation, stood up and stepped back. Amidst the stifling silence, a quiet but firm voice cut through the stillness. It was our daughter, Stephanie. Her words were strained, as though they cost her a great deal of effort to say, but she spoke with undeniable conviction. Taking out your frustration on Mom, who supports you the most when work gets tough, and treating her this way, it's like a childish prank. I shouldn't have to say this, but it's so immature and unbearable to watch, Stephanie said, addressing her father directly. She stood, her eyes never leaving his. Is it wrong to struggle with weight? Mom wakes up early, walks to work, and even packs her lunch. She's trying. It's not fair to say she's not making an effort. She then turned to face Linda. And you, going along with this? Taking away Mom's food, like the chicken tenders incident? It's like high school drama. It's embarrassing. Linda began to offer a confused excuse, that's not it. I'm just concerned about Stephanie's mom not gaining any more weight. I want her to feel good about herself in front of her granddaughter. Besides, Stephanie, like you, is struggling with weight. Stephanie stood her ground. Compassion is about understanding and supporting the other person. It hurts to see Mom's dinner taken away, especially when she's upset. That's not passion. Mom hasn't had any health issues at her checkups yet. Taking away her food is just plain mean. Linda fell silent, clearly taken aback by Stephanie's words. The room hung heavy with the weight of her argument. Stephanie turned back to her father. Mom sees her gynecologist regularly, and she stays active. Yet, Dad, you just brush her aside because she's gained a bit of weight. What's up with that? Your indifference creates so much tension in this house. Can't you see it? Her voice cracked with emotion, but the words rang out with truth. The room was no longer silent, and for the first time in a long while, the air seemed to shift. The room was thick with tension as Stephanie's words, full of both frustration and love, cut through the air. Even Aunt Kayla from the cookie ads has a little extra weight, and she's the happiest person I know. Ever heard of happy weight? She exclaimed. If Mom becomes a lovely grandmother like Aunt Kayla, wouldn't that be wonderful? I'd love to say, Mom, you've reached your happy weight when I have kids and she's a grandma. Her words weren't just a plea, they were an impassioned reminder of the absurdity of the situation and the need for empathy within our family. That's my dream. Please don't ruin it for me, Stephanie added, her voice unwavering. Despite the directness of her delivery, her words warmed my heart, like sipping hot milk with cookies on a cold day. It was a painful sight, watching my daughter reprimand her father, but as she continued, her words spoke directly to me. That's part of my dream, so please, let it go. Be happy and fulfill my dream, she said. Her plea filled me with warmth, turning the frustration over the weight shaming and the drink incident into something trivial. Tears welled in my eyes. Yes, you're right, I whispered, my vision blurring. Come on, Mom, Stephanie urged gently, patting my back. Let's go. I nodded, wiping my eyes, and retrieved something I'd been holding onto for a while. What is that? Mark asked, startled. After a month of being ignored, I had made up my mind. I have my bags packed. Let's go our separate ways, I said, handing him the divorce papers, my name written in bold. Mark's voice cracked with panic. I just wanted you to lose some weight. If you'd slimmed down like I asked, I would have been happy, he admitted, his voice trembling. But since you didn't, I thought I'd torment you some more. I didn't mean for this. Those who only realize things when it's too late are the immature ones, Stephanie snapped, her words slicing through the tension. Living without her beloved granddaughter isn't a joke, Linda said softly, almost pleading with me. Stephanie, without missing a beat, responded, I don't want to live with people who act like they're in middle school. James, realizing the seriousness of the situation, hesitated, then reluctantly agreed. Okay, I'll taste it, he muttered. He picked up the glass meant for my mother-in-law and gulped it down. The fiery sauce immediately made him choke, his lips turning red. See, I took responsibility, James said, trying to salvage some pride. Stephanie, ever the opportunist, snapped a picture of James and Linda with their lobster red lips. "You both look so ridiculous," she laughed. Then, turning to me, she said, "Mom, let's go." "I'll follow her lead," I said, standing up and leaving behind the dinner table, now splattered with the fiery sauce and wine cocktail. Mark and Linda, both sporting swollen lips, were left behind. We headed to my parents' house, where I explained everything. Both of them were furious and decided to confront James and Linda. The divorce went through, and in the years that followed, Mark's career floundered, his behavior contributing to a demotion at work. Meanwhile, Linda found herself stuck, living only with Mark. A few years later, I received a call from her, her voice tinged with regret. "Things wouldn't be so dull if you and Stephanie were here," she said, reflecting on the 15 years since Stephanie was born. "Please come back. I'll stop ignoring you." But I had no intention of returning. "Enjoy yourself while you can. Once you have grandchildren, you'll have plenty of physical work to do," my mother teased, smiling. Today, as I walk to work, I breathe in the fresh morning air, my new routine a symbol of my fresh start. My boss drives by and stops, offering me a ride. "No thanks," I decline. "I'm sticking to my routine." "Come on, Anna, get in," he insists. But today's different. I found someone new, someone who respects me. Unlike my past, we both understand what it's like to go through a divorce, I tell him proudly. "Being punctual is important," he says with a smile as he drives. "I've never been late before," I protest, puffing up my cheeks. He grins, poking my inflated cheek with a playful gesture. "How about you give me the time you saved by riding with me today for a little extra conversation?" I laugh, always the conversationalist, I tease, enjoying the easy connection. Hello, I'm Isabella, and I'm about to celebrate my 29th birthday. This year marks 4 years since I married my husband, Larry, who's 2 years older than me. Our son, Roger, just turned 3. I used to work full-time, but after Roger arrived, I switched to a part-time role at the same company so I could better balance work and family life. From the beginning of our relationship, Larry was always straightforward and confident, but since we got married, I've noticed a more dominant side to him. Larry has a younger sister, Rachel, who's 10 years his junior, 22 years old. Their age gap seems to have fostered an overly indulgent attitude toward her, and while it didn't bother me much before we married, things have started to change since then. Rachel's visits, once charming, have become frequent and unannounced. She often arrives empty-handed, expecting hospitality without any regard for us, and, when she does visit, Larry expects me to serve her without question. She speaks to me as if I'm invisible, addressing Larry with a casual, "Hey, brother, I'm here again." Despite not planning for extra guests, I find myself serving dinner to Rachel and Larry. Larry, instead of showing any understanding, criticizes me in front of her, insisting that I should have been more thoughtful. Though Rachel apologizes in words, it's clear she relishes the preferential treatment from Larry. After dinner, they leave the table a mess and move to the living room, leaving Roger and me largely ignored, treated more like staff than family. One evening, just as Roger and I were about to take a bath, Larry interrupted loudly, demanding I go out and buy a gâteau for Rachel, because she wanted it right now, despite it being late. Reluctantly, I agreed, taking Roger along with me to the shop. While we were out, I overheard Larry and Rachel criticizing me, questioning Larry's decision to marry me. Roger, though too young to understand fully, sensed the tension. To lighten the mood, I asked him about the gâteau, and his excited choice, a fruit-covered one, helped distract us from the discomfort. We managed to find both the gâteau Rachel wanted and the one Roger picked just before the shop closed. When we returned and served them, Rachel pointed at Roger's special gâteau and claimed it for herself. Before I could respond, Larry took it from Roger and handed it to Rachel, dismissing Roger's protests. Larry justified his action by saying he'd paid for the gâteau, so he had the right to decide who gets which one. At that moment, I couldn't hold back any longer. I voiced my frustration loud and clear. Larry responded by threatening divorce. Roger, who had been crying, tried to ease the tension by saying, "Mom, I love gâteau with strawberries too. It's delicious," as he ate a piece of the gâteau meant for Rachel. Seeing Roger suffer was too much for me. I quickly moved him to another room where he could enjoy his gâteau in peace. In the other room, I could hear Larry apologizing to Rachel, regretting his behavior, but I stayed silent, choosing to focus on Roger's well-being. Watching him happily eat his gâteau was a small comfort. Afterward, we decided to take a late bath and sleep in Roger's bed. The next morning, as I prepared breakfast, I was shocked to hear Roger crying. His cherished piggy bank, a gift from my father, had been broken, and all the money he had saved was gone. Roger, who always said goodnight to his piggy bank, was devastated. When I confronted Larry, he casually mentioned that Rachel had taken the money because she needed some cash. Holding my crying, trembling son, I felt his pain deeply. I cried with him. It was heartbreaking to see Larry put his sister's needs above our son's. Driven by anger and sadness, I confronted Larry more directly than ever before. Breaking my usual practice of avoiding arguments in front of Roger, I demanded an explanation. Without a word, Larry went to the bedroom and returned with something that took my breath away: divorce papers. I was completely shocked when I found the hidden divorce papers Larry had prepared in secret, his anger clear in every gesture. Without a word, he thrust the papers at me and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Standing there, holding Roger in my arms, the weight of our family's struggles finally hit me. Roger, who had always remained quiet about the tension between Larry and Rachel, reached his breaking point. Since the night before, he'd been crying, and the sight of his distress was too much for me to bear. I suggested we skip daycare for the day, and his loud, enthusiastic yes, accompanied by a faint smile, told me everything I needed to know. We both needed a break, so we dedicated the day to playing and bonding. Roger, beaming with joy, grabbed a picture book from the shelf, climbed into my lap, and announced, "Mama is the teacher at the nursery, right?" His innocent remark and angelic expression melted my heart, and in that moment, I decided to make the day even more special by taking the day off work. Though it might cause some inconvenience, my colleagues understood and gave me the time off. We spent the morning at the park, playing hide-and-seek and enjoying the sandbox and slide. By the time we returned home for lunch, Roger was visibly tired. Normally, he'd nap alone, but today he fell asleep in my lap, just like when he was a baby. For a moment, I thought about catching up on household chores, but I quickly decided against it. Today was about cherishing these peaceful moments with Roger. I let myself be healed by the sight of his serene, sleeping face and the sound of his gentle breathing. Just as I was soaking in the tranquility, the sound of the front door opening interrupted the calm. It was an unusual time for Larry to come home, and my heart raced with alarm. I quickly scooped Roger into my arms and hid us both in the bedroom closet. Through the thin walls, I heard a voice, Rachel's. My pulse quickened as I listened to her rummage through the house, muttering in frustration about not finding what she was looking for. Then, I heard her make a phone call, mentioning Larry and discussing their failed search. After locking the door behind her, Rachel left. I slowly came out of the closet, carefully put Roger to bed, and sat down, my mind spinning. The idea that Larry and Rachel might be conspiring left me feeling betrayed and afraid. In a whirlwind of emotions, I packed some essentials for Roger and me, and we left for the train station. Thankfully, my parents lived just 3 stops away. I didn't inform them of our arrival, but when they saw the worry in my eyes, they knew something was wrong. Without asking questions, they welcomed us in, providing the safety and understanding I desperately needed. Once settled in the comfort of their home, I shared everything with them: the shocking events, my fear of returning home, and the unsettling behavior of Larry and Rachel. My mother, ever the perceptive one, speculated that Rachel had been searching for my personal belongings, perhaps cash or cards. The thought of it sent another wave of dread through me, but at least here, with my parents, I felt a sense of temporary safety amidst the storm. As I reflected on my early career, I remembered the successes I had before marriage. I had once been the CEO of a thriving handmade goods company, a role I eventually passed on to trusted friends so I could focus on raising my child. Despite stepping back from the company, I continued working part-time from home. What Larry didn't know was that I had retained my position as CEO and maintained a level of financial independence that he was completely unaware of. The discovery of the hidden divorce papers Larry had secretly stashed away made me suspect that he believed I had substantial savings. While I had mentioned that the company still provided me with some financial support, I had purposely withheld the details of my CEO role and the full extent of my savings. This secrecy stemmed from my early realization that Larry struggled with managing money and tended to spend everything he earned. In the beginning, Larry contributed very little to our monthly food expenses and even suggested I quit working to become a full-time housewife. Given the financial strain of raising Roger on a tight food budget, I never agreed to stop working. Eventually, Larry grudgingly accepted that I would continue working part-time. Since Roger's birth, I had been using my savings to cover his nursery fees and clothing because Larry's contributions to the food budget were insufficient. I never asked him for more money, reinforcing his mistaken belief that I had ample savings. Considering Rachel's apparent need for money and Larry's misconceptions about my financial situation, it seemed likely that they were searching for my cash cards to safeguard against any potential financial intrusion. I had a separate savings account for Roger, into which a portion of my salary was directly deposited each month. Despite their efforts, they wouldn't find any cash cards, as I always kept my valuables with me. However, the ongoing issue of Rachel's unauthorized entries into our home, potentially with Larry's help, remained deeply troubling. Taking my father's advice to heart, I decided to secure my valuables, including my cash cards, in my parents' safe. As I pondered their motivations, Roger approached my father, tears in his eyes, distraught over his broken piggy bank. The incident highlighted not only their financial invasion but also the emotional toll it was taking on my son. My father was incensed by the news of Roger's broken piggy bank and his lost savings, vowing to confront Larry. My mother, however, suggested a more cautious approach, finding out their motives first, as rash accusations could make us look guilty in the eyes of the law, potentially tipping the scales in Larry's favor during a divorce. To better understand their intentions, I decided to secretly record their conversations. I consulted a lawyer who was a friend of my father's before heading back to our home that evening. As I began preparing dinner, I strategically placed my phone face down on the kitchen counter to discreetly record. Larry came home earlier than expected and immediately started questioning me about my cash cards. His questions were probing, and when I remained silent, his demeanor grew increasingly agitated. He demanded that I hand over the money. I earned money from my part-time job to support his sister, but when I refused to give him more, Larry erupted in anger. He shoved the signed divorce papers towards me, accusing me of living off his money and claiming there was no need for me to save for Roger. His harsh words even suggested that he valued Rachel more than our son. At that moment, I stopped cooking, grabbed the divorce papers, took Roger by the hand, and headed for the door. Larry's voice boomed behind us as he declared his intent for a divorce, ordering me never to come back. I replied firmly, stating I would never return to a home where strangers could come and go freely. Once outside, I received numerous messages and calls from Larry, all of which I ignored. I turned off my phone and sought refuge at my parents' house. There, I shared the recording and the divorce papers with them. While I confessed that I no longer had any love or affection for Larry, my primary concern was for Roger. My parents, fully supportive of whatever decision I felt was best, acknowledged the potential emotional impact a divorce could have on him. As we discussed these heavy matters, Roger, unaware of the full extent of the situation, mentioned he was hungry. Seeing my distress, my mother kindly stepped in to make burgers, his favorite meal. Overwhelmed by emotions and grateful for the supportive environment my parents provided, I couldn't hold back my tears as my mother served Roger his meal with a warm, reassuring smile. As my mother prepared the burgers, Roger and I were reminded that we could always find comfort and joy with family. Taking a big bite, Roger's face lit up with delight, and he praised his grandma's cooking, saying he wished he could have her burgers every day. Smiling, I told him the secret ingredient was the love we all shared for him. In a heartwarming gesture, Roger took another large bite and then offered it to me. His simple act of sharing moved me to tears, despite my efforts to hold them back. Noticing my tears, my father reassured Roger that they were tears of happiness, not sadness. Understanding this, Roger hugged me tightly, and I saw my father's eyes brimming with emotion, reflecting the deep value of family. In this comforting atmosphere, I explained to Roger how precious family truly is. Surprised, he asked if Dad thought only Rachel was family. My father gently confirmed that this wasn't the case and asked Roger if he would like to live with us. With a joyful laugh, Roger happily agreed, bringing smiles to everyone's faces. Amidst these tender family moments, I realized that it was time to part ways with Larry. Though the decision was tough, and the thought of discussing the divorce weighed heavily on my heart, Roger seemed to intuitively understand the need for change. He even playfully called our older pet dog his younger brother. The next day, we began formalizing the divorce proceedings with the help of a lawyer who was a friend of my father. As we set the legal wheels in motion, my father and Roger shared comforting laughs, lightening the mood. I spent time reflecting on my childhood and the strength I had gained from my family. The following day, I checked my phone and found it overwhelmed with over 180 calls and messages from Larry, revealing his emotional turmoil. Exhausted by the barrage and needing clarity, I turned off my phone. With the lawyer's assistance, we explained the entire situation to my parents, uncovering that Rachel had accumulated significant debt due to a gambling and shopping addiction, further complicating the already strained family dynamics. Larry had secretly assumed the role of guarantor for Rachel, planning to use my savings to cover her debts. The lawyer informed us that the divorce papers had already been submitted. Larry, overwhelmed by the reality of the situation, broke down when he realized the divorce was final. Despite anticipating disagreements over child support, he agreed to pay $145 per month for Roger's upkeep. In a later conversation, Larry's tone was markedly calmer. He admitted to his financial manipulations and shared his complicated feelings about his responsibilities toward Rachel. I remained firm in my decision to move forward without reconsideration. As I heard his faint sobbing, he wished me happiness before ending the call. Resolute, I discussed future plans with my parents and decided it would be best for Roger and me to stay with them until he was older. I resumed my full-time role as president of the company, reaffirming my commitment to a stable and secure future for myself and my son. Later, I learned that Larry and Rachel had explained the situation of the divorce and Rachel's debts to their parents, leading to their disownment. Today, I find immense joy and peace in being surrounded by my loving family, far removed from the turmoil of my past with Larry. Could you be the guest I was expecting? I have something crucial to discuss with you. Please, can you spare a moment? As I was about to step into the restaurant, a woman in chef's attire, looking visibly anxious, approached me. Initially, I assumed she wanted to confirm something about my meal, but what she revealed left me utterly stunned. My name is Cheryl Ruth, and I'm a 33-year-old advertising professional. My career is demanding yet deeply fulfilling as I strive to create meaningful advertisements. I met my husband, Brian, at work. He's a year older than me, and we've been married for a year now. With 2 incomes, we share household responsibilities seamlessly, supporting each other and managing our busy lives. Our early interactions were strictly professional, but over time, we grew closer through personal conversations and discovered shared interests and values. It wasn't long before I developed feelings for him. Fearing we might drift apart once our joint project ended, I mustered the courage to confess my feelings. Despite my anxiety, Brian reciprocated, and we began dating. A year later, he proposed, and we got married. Before our wedding, Brian opened up about his past. He had been married before, but the union ended due to incompatible values. Though he carried some regrets about his first marriage, I understood his hesitations and reassured him that his history didn't define our future. My desire was to build a life with him, and I wholeheartedly accepted his past. Our married life has been a joy. We moved into an apartment conveniently located near our workplaces, and Brian's parents, who live nearby, have been incredibly supportive. Initially, I worried about potential conflicts living so close to my in-laws, but they've always been welcoming and kind, making our transition to married life smooth. Balancing work and personal time can be a challenge. On weekdays, our interactions are often limited to brief conversations over dinner. However, we make the most of our weekends, with cooking becoming one of our favorite activities. It's a necessity, too, given my dietary restrictions. I have a severe allergy to fruits in the Rosaceae family: strawberries, apples, pears, and peaches. The allergy developed unexpectedly in adulthood, starting with a terrifying reaction to strawberries that left me struggling to breathe. After tests confirmed the allergy, I had to accept that many of my favorite fruits were off-limits. Dining out has since become a challenge. Even when I think a dish is safe, hidden ingredients can pose a threat. Just a trace of these fruits can cause severe reactions, making me hypervigilant about verifying ingredients. This constant caution sometimes makes dining out feel like a burden, so I've grown to prefer eating at home. Cooking has become a haven for me, a joyful, safe activity that allows me to relax and enjoy meals. Brian and his parents have been incredibly supportive. My mother-in-law, having cared for her father with a severe wheat allergy, understands the seriousness of my condition. She took the time to learn about my dietary needs, ensuring every meal we shared was safe for me. "You shouldn't have to worry during meals. I'll make sure everything is safe for you," she once assured me, a gesture that nearly brought me to tears. Over time, I've developed a wonderful relationship with my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, who treats me like her own daughter. Her empathy and efforts have made managing my allergies much less stressful. One memorable day, I received a promotion at work for spearheading a successful project proposal. It was a proud moment, made even sweeter when I returned home to celebrate with Brian and my in-laws. Their unwavering support has been a cornerstone of my happiness, both at work and in my personal life. I shared the exciting news of my promotion with my family, and they were all thrilled, especially my mother-in-law. To celebrate, she suggested we dine at an upscale restaurant located in a luxurious hotel, a place I had dreamt of visiting since my student days. Though excited, I hesitated. The restaurant's grandeur, coupled with my dietary restrictions, made me uneasy. "You don't have to hold back, it's such a joyous occasion. Let me treat you," she insisted, her excitement evident. Her enthusiasm warmed my heart, but my concerns lingered. Before my allergy diagnosis, I had browsed the restaurant's website and fantasized about trying their famous fruit-filled tart. Unfortunately, the restaurant frequently used fruits from the Rosaceae family in their dishes, which made me nervous. In the past, we always informed staff of my allergies in advance, but I couldn't shake the guilt of asking for special accommodations. We typically chose restaurants that rarely used such fruits to avoid any risk. Even though this restaurant could prepare allergen-free dishes, the potential for cross-contamination in a kitchen that regularly handled those ingredients felt daunting. Initially, I leaned towards caution, preferring to celebrate somewhere I could relax without fear. However, my mother-in-law's persistence and reassurance swayed me. "Don't worry, I'll let them know about your allergies when I make the reservation. I also happen to know someone there, they'll take extra care of us," she said confidently. Her connection to the restaurant surprised me, as she'd never mentioned it before. Coupled with her thoughtful approach, I began to feel more at ease. When I discussed it with my husband, he was just as surprised by her connection, but reassured knowing they'd be well informed. "It's a celebration of your success, make sure to enjoy yourself," he encouraged with a smile. His support, along with my mother-in-law's enthusiasm, finally convinced me to embrace the occasion. The lunch was scheduled for a weekday, so I took a half-day off from work. After completing my morning tasks, I dressed in a more formal outfit than usual, paying extra attention to my appearance. My colleagues noticed and wished me a wonderful time when they learned about my plans. When I arrived at the hotel, my mother-in-law was already waiting for me. Together, we made our way to the restaurant on the first floor. Thanks to her reservation, we were promptly escorted to our table, though we were informed of a slight delay due to the busy lunch hour. Understanding the popularity of the place, I decided to start with just drinks and wait patiently. Relaxed after finishing work and enjoying the warm company of my mother-in-law, I felt ready to make this celebration memorable. I ordered champagne, and my mother-in-law and I enjoyed delightful conversation, savoring the elegance of the restaurant. The ambience, paired with the superior taste of the champagne, heightened my spirits. Although I'd had champagne before, the glass I sipped that day felt special, perhaps because of the celebration or the allure of finally being in a place I had admired for years. As we chatted, the tantalizing dishes being served to nearby tables only added to my anticipation for our meal. However, just as I began to settle into the moment, my phone rang from inside my bag. I hadn't turned it off, and seeing it was a call from work, a sudden wave of sobriety replaced my joy. Worried it might be urgent, I excused myself and stepped outside the restaurant to take the call in private, ensuring I could address any sensitive matters without disruption. Thankfully, the issue was minor. My colleague needed clarification on a document I had submitted earlier. Relieved it wasn't an error, I quickly provided the answers they needed. Just as I was about to hang up, an unfamiliar woman approached me. "Excuse me, are you the customer who made the reservation for today's meal?" she asked, dressed as a chef. She looked rushed and slightly breathless, her expression laden with concern. Puzzled by her presence outside the kitchen during such a busy time, I nodded cautiously. Her next words sent a chill down my spine. "It's dangerous to return to the restaurant now. Please leave the hotel immediately and ensure your safety." Her intense demeanor and urgent tone left me stunned. Though I tried to seek further explanation, her insistence and the gravity of her warning made my blood run cold. Without fully understanding the situation but sensing genuine danger, I hailed a taxi and headed home. That evening, my phone rang again. It was my mother-in-law, and to my surprise, her tone was sharp and furious, unlike anything I had encountered from her before. "You just left without a word. Don't you have any manners? What kind of upbringing did you have?" she chastised, her voice dripping with anger. She was clearly embarrassed and upset that I had left abruptly, leaving her to handle the reserved special course alone. Her harsh words stung, and I realized the gravity of the misunderstanding. Yet what shocked me most was her lack of concern for my sudden departure. Instead of worrying about my well-being, she berated me relentlessly. "You've been silent this whole time. Don't you realize how wrong you were? You're not fit to be my son's wife," she raged. Her tirade even extended to criticizing my parents and how they had raised me. When she finally paused, I gathered the courage to speak. "You told me you informed the restaurant about my allergies when you made the reservation so I could relax. But the restaurant wasn't aware of my allergies. What happened?" Her silence was deafening. The truth was that the meal prepared for us that day contained ingredients I was severely allergic to, not only in the dessert but also in the main courses, hidden in marinades and sauces. The woman who approached me outside the restaurant had taken the reservation call from my mother-in-law and confirmed that no mention of my allergies had been made. She had noticed the allergy badge on my bag and decided to check on me just in case. If she hadn't warned me, I would have unknowingly consumed the food and suffered a severe allergic reaction. But the real revelation came next. The chef revealed that she was my husband's ex-wife, now working under the name Julia. Recognizing my mother-in-law and realizing I was her son's new wife, she intervened out of concern. Julia shared that my mother-in-law was notorious for her harsh behavior. During her marriage, Julia had lived with my husband's parents and endured relentless criticism from my mother-in-law, particularly when my husband or father-in-law wasn't around. Despite Julia's professional culinary skills, my mother-in-law found fault with everything she did, even discarding her dishes out of spite. Her account painted a starkly different picture of the woman I thought I knew. It wasn't just the sharp tone of my mother-in-law's phone call, it was the realization of her deliberate carelessness that shook me to my core. I had always seen my mother-in-law as a gentle and kind woman, but the events that unfolded revealed a very different side of her. The hostility she exhibited, hidden beneath a polished facade, forced me to reconsider the dynamics of my new family and how I should navigate these relationships going forward. Her true nature became more apparent as I uncovered her troubling history with Brian's ex-wife, Julia. After transitioning to a full-time housewife, Julia found herself financially dependent and under her mother-in-law's constant scrutiny. Trapped, isolated, and without evidence of her mistreatment, Julia eventually sought escape through divorce. Despite her lack of work experience, she leveraged her culinary training to build a career, rising through the ranks to become a skilled chef. However, her past resurfaced when my mother-in-law discovered her workplace and began demanding discounts under the guise of their connection. This pattern of manipulation hinted at a deep-seated behavior that extended to me. When I confronted my mother-in-law about failing to disclose my allergies during the restaurant reservation, she initially feigned ignorance, trying to shift the blame onto the staff. However, the restaurant's policy of recording calls meant her lie was easily exposed. Faced with the possibility of evidence, her composure shattered, and she confessed her resentment. "I despise how you outshine me. You deserve some pain," she admitted, her words cutting deeply. This shocking revelation made it clear that her envy had driven her to put my life at risk. To address the situation, I decided to involve my family and Brian. In the presence of my parents, we confronted her with the recorded evidence. When Brian heard her incriminating statements, he was furious. "I can't believe you would do this, Mom," he said, his voice tight with anger. Her desperate attempts to explain fell on deaf ears as Brian declared, "We're cutting ties. I don't even want to think of you as my mother anymore." The fallout was swift. Brian informed his father, who was equally enraged and decided to separate from her. Left with no support system, she was evicted from their home. Her husband, showing a final act of pity, paid for a small apartment's first month's rent and told her to fend for herself. However, she continued to cling to us, even barging into our house one day to demand money. Brian firmly sent her away, making it clear she was no longer welcome in our lives. Rumors later suggested she had taken a job at a local supermarket, struggling to adjust to her new circumstances. Despite everything, I hoped she would work diligently, not only to support herself, but also to reflect on her actions. For my part, I resolved to maintain firm boundaries to protect our family from her manipulations. In the aftermath, Brian reached out to Julia to apologize for not recognizing her suffering during their marriage. She assured him she had moved on, now happily dating someone else. Surprisingly, Julia and I became friends through this ordeal. As career-oriented women, we found common ground and mutual respect, unclouded by her past relationship with Brian. To celebrate my promotion and reaffirm their support, Brian and his father hosted a party in my honor. Their thoughtful gesture reminded me of the strength of our bond and my resolve to continue thriving, free from the shadows of my former mother-in-law's interference. The experience, though painful, ultimately strengthened my confidence and the foundation of our family.
Hello everyone, I'm Betty, and I'd like to share a significant chapter of my life, one that involves challenges with my in-laws and my husband while navigating a difficult divorce. I hope my story resonates with anyone who's faced unfair criticism from their in-laws. Let me take you back to where it all began. I met Kevin, my now estranged husband, on a dating app when I was a 20-year-old college student. Kevin was 26, established, and financially stable. Despite our age difference, we fell in love quickly. I've always believed that love isn't confined by age or appearance, so Kevin's being older was never an issue for me. However, Kevin struggled with our age gap. He often asked, "Why are you with me, Betty? You could find someone your age, someone who might be a better match," but I chose him because I loved him, and to me, age was just a number. Kevin's insecurities ran deep, and he would press, "There must be another reason. It's not normal for someone like you to be with someone like me. Please, just tell me the real reason." I reassured him again and again that my feelings were genuine, that I wasn't interested in dating someone my age. I loved him for who he was, and that was what mattered to me. Yet, his self-doubt remained, hinting at deeper issues of self-esteem that seemed to have kept him single before we met. Wanting to prove my love, I made sure Kevin never spent excessively on me. As a college student, I wasn't wealthy, but I bought him thoughtful gifts and managed my own finances. I worked part-time jobs, ensuring I wasn't financially dependent on him. Kevin seemed to appreciate these efforts, but sadly, his insecurities didn't fade. He continued to question the sincerity of my love, which hurt deeply. It took 3 years before I truly understood where Kevin's issues were coming from. When I met his parents, Samuel and Charlotte, I began to see the root of his struggles. Samuel, Kevin's father, had experienced a sudden windfall when he won the lottery, which changed their lives overnight. This newfound wealth gave me insight into the environment that shaped Kevin's views and insecurities. After winning the lottery, Samuel and Charlotte bought a lavish house and invested wisely. However, their wealth came with a sense of superiority. During our first meeting, Samuel boasted, "Not everyone makes it big like I did. I worked hard, and look where it got me. Do you know how rare it is to win the lottery? I did it on my first try." They were proud of their financial success, often implying that Kevin, despite his college education, would never reach their level. Charlotte often hinted that Kevin's previous partners had only been after his money, leaving him once they were financially secure. They openly doubted his ability to make good decisions, which infuriated me. It was clear that Kevin's parents painted every woman he dated as a gold digger, and over time, Kevin started to believe this narrative. The insinuation that I, too, was just after his money became an embarrassing and hurtful part of their story. Fed up with their baseless assumptions, I finally stood up for both Kevin and myself. "I'm sorry, but I have to disagree," I said. "Kevin has worked hard to build his career, and in time, he will achieve even greater success. But that doesn't mean women are after his money." Samuel retorted, "That doesn't change the fact that women only want him for money. We worked hard for what we have, but Kevin does co-own the house. Eventually, it will be his. Every time these girls see our $350,000 house, I swear, they just see dollar signs." I couldn't hold back any longer. I can't speak for Kevin's past relationships, but I'm certainly not in this for the money. I love your son, and that's why we're together. I have no interest in your house." Charlotte then said, "Don't worry, Betty. Sometimes it's hard to accept that people can be successful and live in nice houses. You live in a small rented apartment with roommates. You might start desiring it after spending time around our house." Their comments pushed me to my limits. I was on the verge of losing my temper, but Kevin, who had been listening, said nothing. He didn't defend me or himself. Instead, he changed the subject. On our way home, I was taken aback by his indifferent attitude after such a tense visit with his parents. I knew I had to address the issue directly with Kevin. "Kevin, your parents are being unfair and hurtful to both of us. Why didn't you stand up for me?" Kevin sighed, his frustration clear. "What did you expect me to say, Betty? My past isn't exactly encouraging. I've been used before by people who only saw my parents' wealth, making plans for when they'd inherit the house. Even if they were wrong about those women, that doesn't mean they're wrong about everything. I felt a pang of hurt. Even if those women were after your money, that doesn't mean I am. It hurts that you stayed silent while your family insulted me." Kevin looked conflicted. "You know my family's wealthy now, and maybe they have a point. I'm not accusing you of having bad intentions, but I can see why it might look questionable to others. You don't have parents, and because of that, you might seem more reliant on my inheritance." His words were almost too much to bear. "What you're suggesting is absurd, Kevin. I've never pressured you to spend on me. Not having an inheritance doesn't make me a gold digger." Kevin remained stubborn, unwilling to see my side. "I love you, and that's what matters. Let's not argue about this anymore," he said, dismissing the conversation. While some might have found comfort in his declaration of love, I couldn't shake the feeling that he still doubted my intentions. I tried to discuss it again, even suggesting therapy to help him see things more clearly, but he refused, insisting there was nothing wrong. As time went on, I began distancing myself from his family. We got engaged right after I graduated from college, and I landed a decent job, which allowed me to start saving for our wedding. We shared the wedding expenses equally and married when I was 23. However, the next 4 years of our marriage were rocky. Kevin frequently visited his parents, returning each time more distant and upset. I knew Samuel and Charlotte were still poisoning his mind, continuing to brand me as a gold digger. Despite my pleas for him to reduce contact with them, Kevin kept seeing his parents often. Their negative influence started to deeply affect his view of our relationship, making him believe no one could love him for who he was.
Even after years of my unwavering love, Kevin's suspicions towards me never seemed to ease. The constant need to prove my sincerity grew more exhausting. But the moment that truly tested us came on Kevin's birthday. Wanting a low-key celebration, we decided to have a small cake party at home. Excited to make his day special, I surprised him with the expensive watch he'd admired for so long. Kevin was thrilled with the gift, but my heart sank when he suggested we show it off to his parents. Despite my hesitation, I agreed. When we arrived at his parents' house, Kevin couldn't wait to show off the new watch. "Mom, Dad, look at this beautiful watch Betty got me. I've wanted it for so long. Isn't it stunning?" His enthusiasm was palpable. Charlotte responded with a hint of surprise. "Oh, Kevin, it seems she does love you after all." We were quite worried for some time. But Samuel quickly added, "Don't be fooled, old Charlotte, she's a gold digger. She married our son because we have a $350,000 house. Let's not ignore the facts." I couldn't hold back my frustration. "Excuse me, why do you think I married your son for your house? I had been working and living in an apartment for years. Besides, if age was really a concern, why would I marry someone older unless I truly loved him?" I said, trying to hold my ground. "I assure you, I didn't marry Kevin for his money or for your house. I married him because I love him. Surely Kevin can confirm that, right?" To my shock, Kevin remained silent. His unwillingness to defend me in front of his accusing parents was unsettling, and I felt my heart sink. I looked at him, hoping for some reassurance, but he avoided my gaze. The silence between us grew heavy, his lack of response amplifying the harsh assumptions of his family. The more they criticized me, the more isolated I felt. Pushed to my limit, I finally confronted him. "Kevin, why aren't you saying anything? Your parents have always labeled me a gold digger. How will they ever see the real me if you don't speak up? Why are you so quiet? Tell them they're wrong." Kevin hesitated, his discomfort clear. He muttered, I don't know what you want me to say, Betty. Maybe my parents aren't completely wrong. There might be a possibility." His words trailed off, but the implication was unmistakable. the doubt in his voice, the hesitation to stand by me, was more than just a misunderstanding. It was a crack in the foundation of our relationship, a crack that threatened to cast a shadow over everything. My love for him, my place in his life, suddenly felt uncertain. The atmosphere at Kevin's birthday celebration, which had been intended to be special, quickly turned sour. I couldn't believe the accusations that were flying my way. "Are you serious right now, Kevin? You believe I married you for your assets?" His parents chimed in, their suspicion thick in the air. "Oddly, you've never talked about buying a house, have you? For someone renting, owning a home should be a priority. Our place is out of your price range. You could never afford something like this on your own, so marrying Kevin and settling here seems more logical." Kevin looked at me, his face a mixture of doubt and confusion. "Yeah, Betty, why would you marry me? You might have feelings for me, but I think there's more to it than just love." I was left speechless by their words. All the love and affection I had once felt for Kevin seemed to vanish in an instant. It wasn't just his parents' skepticism that hurt, it was Kevin's agreement with them that cut the deepest. In that moment, I knew I had to end our marriage, but I didn't reveal my decision right away. Instead, I waited for the right moment. Once Kevin and I were back home, I contacted a lawyer and began the divorce process. The lawyer reassured me that everything would be finalized within the week. In the meantime, I moved into a separate room to give myself some space. Kevin thought I was just cooling off. He had no idea what my intentions really were. When the divorce papers were ready, I packed my things and left. Kevin, clearly distressed, called me in a panic. I told him to meet me at a specific address and to bring his parents. He was confused, but he agreed. When they arrived, I was standing on the porch of a stunning house. Their expressions shifted as they took in the luxurious surroundings. "You must be wondering why I brought you here," I said, gesturing to the grand estate. "It's a beautiful house, isn't it? No one can compare their home to this one. It's worth around $3 million in today's market, quite expensive, right?" The dramatic setting was my way of showing them that their accusations were unfounded. I wasn't the person they thought I was, and I needed to make that clear, loudly and undeniably. "But it's worth every penny," I added, pointing to the lavish interior. "The furniture alone was worth millions." "What is this place, Betty?" Kevin asked, his confusion evident. "I don't understand why you have access to such a house." "Why don't you all come inside so we can talk properly?" I suggested, brushing off their astonishment. "I can't explain everything standing here on the porch." They followed me inside, their eyes widening at the opulent decor that greeted us. The owners had spared no expense in furnishing their home. As we settled into plush sofas, I took a deep breath, ready to address the elephant in the room. "I've made a decision," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. "That's why we're here. I filed for divorce." I handed Kevin the papers. "We can proceed with an uncontested divorce if you agree." Kevin looked at me, his voice filled with confusion and concern. "What? I don't understand. Why are you filing for divorce?" "It's simple," I replied, my tone firm. "You and your parents think I'm a gold digger. You believe I married you for your house and your money. Despite everything I've said, you've refused to listen, so it's better for everyone if I leave, sparing you from what you deem my gold-digging tendencies." Kevin's disbelief was palpable. "You're considering divorce just because my parents spoke what they believed to be the truth? That's ridiculous." "I think it's for the best," I said, resolute. Kevin's mother, watching the exchange with an unreadable expression, finally chimed in. "If she's so adamant, you should just sign the papers, Kevin. At least then you can find someone who truly loves you." Kevin turned to me. "Why did you bring us to this house, Betty? Do you expect me to buy this for you as part of our divorce settlement?" I looked at him calmly. "Why would I need you to buy this house, Kevin? This house is already mine." Their jaws dropped in shock. "What? How can you afford a house like this? You're renting, and your job isn't enough to cover something like this. Stop lying to us," Kevin's father demanded, his voice sharp with suspicion. I could see their disbelief, but I was ready to prove something far bigger than my financial independence. This revelation wasn't just about money, it was about declaring my autonomy. I had done it on my own, and I would never allow their doubts to define me again. "This house is mine," I repeated firmly, "and this is how I'm changing everything between us. Our relationship dynamics are forever altered." "I'm not lying," I asserted, my voice steady as I saw the disbelief in their eyes. "Kevin, remember when I told you my parents left me an inheritance? This house is part of it. It's in a trust for now, but I'll officially inherit it when I turn 31. I don't need a high-paying job, because I have a trust fund waiting for me." That's impossible, Kevin interrupted, his face etched with confusion. Your parents passed away years ago. They should have given you the house by now. I took a deep breath. My parents knew there were people who might try to take advantage of me, I explained. They put everything in a trust to protect it until I was old enough to understand what it meant. They wanted me to be settled with someone who genuinely cared about me, not someone who was after my money. Kevin's mother looked taken aback. Oh my God, Betty, you should have told us about this. We had no idea. This is a beautiful house. We could all live here very comfortably. Yeah, you should have shared that earlier, Kevin added, now looking relieved, though still somewhat embarrassed. We thought you were after our house. If we'd known. I always knew Betty was perfect for Kevin, his father chimed in, his tone shifting as he eyed the lavish surroundings. Look at this, she's a great match for him, look at her wealth. I couldn't help but laugh at the sudden shift in their attitude. It was dizzying how quickly their views of me had changed, but what struck me even more was how easily they'd forgotten about the divorce papers I had brought. Anyway, I said, pulling the divorce papers from my bag, here's my signature for an uncontested divorce. You can sign these if you agree. If not, we can take it to court, but I won't live with you anymore. Kevin looked at me, his eyes desperate. Wait, Betty, listen, there's no need to rush. You've proven you're not a gold digger. There's no reason to get a divorce now. We apologize for the misunderstanding. Doesn't that make things better? Kevin's parents nodded in agreement, but their words only fueled my frustration. I don't want your insincere apologies, I said, my voice firm. For 3 years, you allowed your family to label me a gold digger. You could have defended me, but you sided with them. You even accused me of it. I can't stay with someone who doesn't respect his wife. I'm done. They pleaded with me, asking me to overlook the past, but their lack of genuine remorse made it clear that nothing had truly changed. When I reached my breaking point, I demanded they leave, threatening to call the police if they didn't. My firm stance left them no choice but to leave. In the weeks that followed, Kevin and his parents relentlessly harassed me. They begged, pleaded, and even offered bribes, thinking money could sway my decision. It only fueled my anger, revealing their continued view of me as someone driven by financial gain. Ironically, since Kevin co-owned the house with his parents, I was entitled to half of his share, which only added to their desperation for reconciliation. Despite their relentless attempts, I stayed firm in my resolve to end things. I moved all my belongings to my parents' house, asserting my right to stay there, even before officially inheriting the property. Kevin and his family kept trying to reach me, but I changed my number to cut them off. Kevin even showed up at my workplace, but I had already informed security, and they asked him to leave. He still hadn't signed the divorce papers, holding on to hope that I would change my mind. Almost a year had passed, and the situation remained unresolved, a testament to the complexity and emotional weight of our lives entangled together. But I had made it this far on my own. I was financially stable, and though I had gone on a few dates, I wasn't ready for anything serious yet. A cousin of Kevin's told me his family was now scrambling to pay me my rightful share of the house. Their legal fees were mounting, and their savings were running low. Kevin had even suggested selling the house, harboring resentment toward his parents for the chaos they'd caused in his life. At this point, I couldn't care less about their dilemmas. My only focus was to be free from their toxic influence and move on with my life, leaving behind the chaos and negativity that had plagued me for so long.